7 types of divine-grade divine power. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. 100,000 high-grade divine crystals was equivalent to 10 billion mid-grade divine crystals. As for how many low-grade divine crystals it was equivalent to, it was an astronomical figure. Upon hearing this number, Lu Ming was also shocked. The old man also looked at Lu Ming with a smile. Even a low-level divine king would not be able to afford such a price. He was certain that Lu Ming would not be able to afford so many divine crystals. Sigh, what a pity. I can't directly buy the first level. Lu Ming also sighed in his heart. In fact, he only needed to buy the first level of these divine techniques. However, there was a rule here that if he wanted to buy, he could only buy the whole book. After sighing, Lu Ming took out a few storage rings and fiddled with them. Then he handed one to the old man. Senior, the low-grade, mid-grade and high-grade divine crystals in here are exactly the same as 100,000 high-grade divine crystals. Lu Ming said. Do you really have that many divine crystals? The old man was skeptical. He took Lu Ming's storage ring and scanned it with his spiritual senses. He was stunned. The space in the storage ring was filled with divine crystals. There was a mountain of low-grade and middle-grade divine crystals, as well as a portion of high-grade divine crystals. An ordinary person would not be able to count them, but with the elder's powerful spiritual sense, he was able to count them in a few breaths. The divine crystals added together were exactly the same as 100,000 high-grade divine crystals. Kid, you're amazing. You really can take out 100,000 high-grade divine crystals. The old man also sighed. Lu Ming sighed in his heart. If he had not killed the Night Demon Lord and obtained his storage ring, he would not have been able to take out so many divine crystals. One had to know that the Night Demon King owned the Demon Night Spring, which was why he had so many divine crystals. Even so, after paying such a large sum of divine crystals, Lu Ming did not have many divine crystals left. Since you've paid the divine crystals, these divine techniques are yours. I'll remove the restrictions on them for you, the old man said. Then he formed a seal with both hands. Runes flew into the secret manual one after another. The light on the secret manual flickered a few times before it stabilized. All right, the restriction on it has been broken. Take it, the old man said. Many thanks, Senior. Lu Ming cupped his fists and took the secret manual. He kept it in his storage ring and returned to his residence impatiently. Chiyu. After returning to his residence, Lu Ming walked into Chiu Yu's room. Young master, what's wrong? Chiu Yu ended her cultivation and blinked at Lu Ming. Chiyu, how's your cultivation going with the saint-grade divine arts I gave you before? Lu Ming asked. They've all been successfully cultivated. They've already condensed divine fire. Chiu Yu said. So fast. Lu Ming was rather speechless. Fortunately, Chiu Yu cultivated the same divine technique as Lu Ming. Chia, I've bought some divine-grade divine skills and techniques. Take 2 of them and cultivate them. After you've cultivated them, merge the divine-grade divine power with similar attributes into the divine-grade divine power. Lu Ming took out a few divine-grade techniques and passed them to Chiu Yu. Divine-grade divine art. Chiu Yu's eyes lit up and she took the 2. After that, Lu Ming returned to his room and took out a divine technique, the divine tying technique, and started to flip through it. It was indeed difficult to cultivate a divine-grade mystical technique. However, Lu Ming already had a lot of experience. In addition, his comprehension had improved a lot on Star Peak. It was not too difficult to cultivate it. A few months later, Lu Ming had cultivated the first stage of the tying divine technique and successfully cultivated a wisp of tying divine energy. After that, Lu Ming switched to cultivating the universe thousand Tao scripture and continued to strengthen this wisp of tying divine energy until he cultivated a divine fire. Just like that, a year passed. When the divine energy was strong enough, another divine fire was ignited in Lu Ming's dantian. This was the divine fire of tying. This was also because the cultivation environment in the Star Sky Camp was too good. If it were anywhere else, it wouldn't be as fast. Now I can merge the ice divine power and the extreme cold divine power into the moon divine power. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He began to control the 2 divine flames and fused them with the divine moon fire. Their attributes were similar, and the level of the divine moon fire was higher, so it was relatively easy to merge them. After a few months, the ice divine power and the ultimate cold divine power had completely merged into the divine moon fire. The divine moon fire had grown a lot stronger, but it was still far from the divine fire condensed by the ruler's divine power and the inextinguishable sword force. It would take time for it to grow. In this way there were only 9 divine flames left in Lu Ming's dantian. I wonder how Qiu Yu's cultivation is going. Let's go and take a look. Lu Ming walked out of the room and happened to see Qiu Yu in the courtyard, cultivating a divine skill. Qiu Yu stopped cultivating when she noticed Lu Ming. "Qiu, how's your cultivation of the 2 divine-grade divine arts?" Lu Ming asked with a smile. "I finished cultivating a few months ago." Qiu Yu said. "What? You've finished cultivating? Has the divine flame fusion been completed?" Lu Ming was shocked. "Yeah, it's done." Qiu Yu said. Lu Ming had suffered a huge blow. He had been cultivating non-stop and had only managed to cultivate 1 of them. However, Qiu Yu had already cultivated 2 of them. This was really a blow to him. "Qiu, take these and cultivate." Lu Ming gave the remaining 3 divine techniques to Qiu Yu, and Qiu Yu returned the 2 that she had finished cultivating. The 2 of them chatted for a while before returning to their respective rooms to continue cultivating. Time passed quickly. It had been 10 years since Lu Ming came to the space camp. During this period of time, Lu Ming had successfully cultivated all the divine-grade divine skills and wondrous techniques. He had completely fused all the divine powers with similar attributes. Now there were only 9 divine fires and 9 types of divine power left in Lu Ming's dantian. 7 of them were divine-grade divine power. They were the ruler divine power, inextinguishable sword power, sun divine power, moon divine power, sky profound divine power, annihilating wind divine power and sky evil divine power. There was also a sacred grade divine power, the multi-eye divine power, and a king grade divine power, the golden dragon divine power. Of course, out of the 7 types of divine grade divine power, only the ruler's divine power and inextinguishable sword force were in a full state. They were at the 4th level celestial deity realm. The other 5 divine-grade divine powers were only at the level of a 1st-level celestial deity. They were still far from full. Although the sacred and king-grade divine powers were full before the fusion, they were far from full once they were converted to divine-grade divine power. However, even so, Lu Ming's overall combat strength had improved. After all, they were all divine-grade divine powers. Each of them was extremely powerful. If all his divine energy was full, Lu Ming's combat strength would increase dramatically. By then, even if his cultivation did not improve, he would be able to crush a heaven's favorite like Ling Ying. And NBSP, however, it was also very difficult to cultivate 5 types of divine-grade divine power to a full state. For example, a person would need a long time to advance from the 1st level to the 4th level celestial deity. Moreover, Lu Ming was equivalent to 5 people. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2987 Star Moon Ancient City. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicronum. The Universe Thousand Dao scripture had its pros and cons. He controlled many types of divine-grade divine power and was indeed very powerful. However, the resources and time he needed to cultivate were much more than others. It's a pity that the refining speed of the star core is too slow. If the energy of the star core were to pour in, I would be able to cultivate the 5 types of divine-grade divine power to a full state very quickly. Lu Ming muttered. "Hey kid, are you blaming this old lady for refining too slowly?" Lu Ming's words were heard by the measure formula and it immediately cried out. "I don't," Lu Ming quickly denied it. "Brat, it's all because your cultivation base is too weak." "Too weak, do you understand? He's simply weak to the point of dregs. Heavenly God realm, hee. The quantity formula sneered. Its resentment was shockingly great. Lu Ming's face was covered in cold sweat. The quantity formula mumbled again, all of them criticizing Lu Ming. After a long while he stopped. "Kid, let me tell you. It's not impossible to quickly refine the energy in the core of a star." After he finished criticizing, the tone of the measure character suddenly changed. "What is it?" Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Without the help of the energy from the star core, Lu Ming would need at least tens of thousands of years to cultivate all 5 types of divine powers to the maximum even if he was on the star peak. After tens of thousands of years, even daylilies would have turned cold. It's very simple. The core of a star is extremely young and strong. If you can find an object of extreme yin and extreme cold for me to absorb and fuse with yin and yang, I can quickly refine the core of a star into energy. The quantity formula said. Extreme Yin and extreme cold? Then does the cold moonstone count? Lu Ming said. No, the cold moonstone's grade is too low. The ball of cold liquid in your 9th ice chain can do it. The quantity formula said. That liquid. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. However, he had already refined it and turned it into a divine power. It would definitely not work. Then Lu Ming thought of the treasure of the Ice Soul clan, the Ice Jade Heart. However, the Ice Jade Cold Heart was the clan treasure of the Ice Soul clan. It was impossible for him to refine and absorb it. Let's go take a look at the Star Sky Camp Market. Lu Ming muttered and left the room, heading to the market of the Star Sky Camp. Unfortunately, even though some cold attribute treasures were discovered in the market of the Universal Camp, they did not meet the requirements. One had to know that it was the core of a star. It was very difficult to find an item of extreme cold that matched it. For the next few days, Lu Ming went in and out of the city square. Unfortunately, he did not gain anything. Lu Ming could only rely on himself to cultivate slowly. Lu Ming cultivated the Heaven and Earth Thousand Dao scripture to accumulate divine power while he cultivated various divine skills. He discovered that the complete version of the 9 heavenly Kunping technique was even more profound than the incomplete version. This was especially so after the 7th level. It was simply a whole lot more profound. After cultivating it, it really had the power of the Kunping, which could spread its wings and fly 100,000 miles. Lu Ming, come out and fight me. On this day, Lu Ming was cultivating when he suddenly heard a loud roar from outside. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He extended his spiritual senses and found a young man standing in midair with a sharp gaze. Lu Ming had never seen this young man before. It seems like the Jin and Qin families can't hold back anymore. Lu Ming pondered and then said, I want to fight until 50 years have passed. Lu Ming rejected her very directly. Lu Ming, what kind of prodigy are you? You only know how to hide and don't even dare to accept the challenge. I think you should just get out of the Universal Camp. The young man shouted coldly, his voice filled with disdain. Oh really? Fine, suppress your cultivation to the same level as mine and I'll fight you. Lu Ming's voice was heard. Humph. The young man snorted coldly and did not reply. Why aren't you talking? You don't even dare to accept a battle at the same level. What kind of heaven's favorite are you? You only know how to hide like a turtle. I think you should get out of the Universal Camp. Lu Ming's disdainful voice was heard. You? The young man was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Lu Ming had returned his words to him word for word. In the end, the young man could only leave in dejection. However, in less than a month, another young man came to challenge Lu Ming. He was provoking and slandering Lu Ming in various ways. However, Lu Ming always said nonchalantly, Do you dare to fight me at the same level? After that, those people left dejectedly. Are these people really sent by the Jin and Qin families? Lu Ming had some doubts after being continuously challenged. If it was the Jin family or the Qin family, 1 or 2 challenges would be enough. But it had already been 4 or 5 times. Lu Ming could not help but recall the assassination attempt he had encountered on his way to the Star Sky Camp. Then who sent them? Also, wasn't there the 9 absolute heavenly king mansions backing behind Magic City Mountain? How could it be destroyed by the Star Sky Camp as a test for the new recruits? Could it be that the person who gave the test to the newcomers was the backer of Magic City Mountain? The other party wanted to destroy Magic City Mountain and destroy the evidence? This was still very possible. If that was the case, the Night Demon King would definitely have evidence. That was why Lu Ming was assassinated on his way to the Star Camp. And among the people who challenged him, it was possible that they were sent by the other party to kill him and take away the evidence in his hands? The more Lu Ming thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. However, it was impossible to check from the person who gave the test instructions to the newcomers. Lu Ming had already asked Wu Ming and Wu Yu about this. The person who gave the test was a normal elder of the Universal Camp. Obviously, the other party couldn't have given such an order personally. It would probably be difficult to find out through special means. Lu Ming's hand moved and the Night Demon King's storage ring appeared in his hand. If there was any evidence, it must be in the storage ring. However, Lu Ming did not find anything after flipping through it a few times. Watch it again. Lu Ming continued to flip through the pages. In the end, he still did not find anything. Clang, clang, clang. At this moment, the sound of a bell came from the Star Peak. What happened? Lu Ming was curious and walked out of the room with Qiu Yu. Star Moon Ancient City will open in 10 days. Those who wish to try their luck, please gather at the square at the foot of the mountain in 10 days. A voice came from the top of the star peak and spread throughout the entire Star Sky Camp area. Everyone could hear it. Star Moon Ancient City is about to open again. This time I must go in. I must awaken the origin divine power factor. Haha, this is my chance. Instantly the entire Universal Camp was in an uproar. Many of the senior members were excited. Star Moon Ancient City? What was that? Is it a historical site? Lu Ming and Qiuyu were puzzled. Let's go ask Wu Ming and Wu Yu. Qiuyu said. All right. Lu Ming nodded. Then he rose into the air with Qiuyu and flew toward the foot of the mountain. Soon the two of them arrived at the foot of the mountain and a pungent smell wafted over. At this moment the members of the Universal Camp at the foot of the mountain had also left the wooden house and were discussing the matter of Star Moon Ancient City. When they saw Lu Ming and Qiuyu, each and every one of them had envious looks on their faces. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2988 Wormhole. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. One day I'll also kill my way up there and fly in the open. Me too. Many people clenched their fists tightly and looked at Lu Ming enviously. Living on Star Peak without any stench and being able to fly freely had become the goal of these people. Lu Ming ignored these people. Very soon they found Wu Ming and Wu Yu. Brother Lu, Lady Chua, why are you here? Wu Ming and Wu Yu smiled. After not seeing each other for over a decade, Wu Ming and Wu Yu's cultivation had become much more exquisite. They were not far from 9th level celestial deity either. Brother Wu, I'd like to ask you something. What's the matter with Star Moon Ancient City? Lu Ming smiled. So it's because of Star Moon Ancient City. We don't know much about the details. We only know that Star Moon Ancient City is an ancient ruin. Legend has it that it was left behind from the beginning of the Heavenly Palace era. Contains all kinds of opportunities. It's said that every time someone goes there they will gain something. There are even people who have successfully awakened the origin divine power factor inside. Wu Ming explained. As he said this, his eyes revealed a fiery radiance. The ruins left behind during the early days of the Heavenly Palace era. Lu Ming was also secretly shocked. Now it was the later stage of the Heavenly Palace era which was many years away from the beginning. I heard that there are all kinds of forbidden grounds inside that contain treasures. Wu Yu added. Oh, did anyone find a treasure of the cold attribute inside? Lu Ming asked. Yes. I heard that there's a forbidden area inside that has supreme cold treasures. Wu Yu said. Lu Ming's eyes lit up slightly. If he could obtain a cold attribute treasure in Star Moon Ancient City, it would greatly increase his cultivation speed. He had to go to Star Moon Ancient City. It was too slow to cultivate step by step. He could only improve faster by taking risks and experiencing. After chatting with Wu Ming and Wu Yu, Lu Ming and Qiuyu returned to their residence. 10 days passed by in a flash. 10 days later, the square at the foot of the mountain was packed with people. Most of the elites from the Universal Camp were here. Of course, there was a limit to entering Star Moon Ancient City. Those above the Divine King realm couldn't enter. Only the half-step Divine King realm could enter. Lu Ming. Wu Ming and Wu Yu walked toward Lu Ming and Qiuyu. There were a few young men and women following behind them. All of them had extraordinary auras. Wu Ming introduced the few young men and women. They were all the Wu clan's prodigies. They cultivated on Star Peak, and their cultivation bases were below the God King stage. The few of them greeted each other and could be considered to have gotten to know each other. They're here. Suddenly, someone spoke and looked in the direction of Star Peak. A beam of light flew over from the top of the Star Peak. It was a white-haired old man who stood in the air above the square. A vast and unfathomable aura emanated from his body, making it difficult to guess what his cultivation was. My name is Bai Li. You can call me Elder Bai. The white-haired elder said. Greetings, Elder Bai. Many people saluted. The experts in charge of the Universal Camp were all sent by the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. They were the direct descendants of the 9 Absolute Heavenly King and did not belong to any aristocratic family. You all want to enter Star Moon Ancient City, right? First of all, I want to remind you that it's very dangerous to go to Star Moon Ancient City. You can lose your life at any time. You'd better think about it carefully. Bai Li warned seriously. However, no one made a sound. Of course, there would be danger in taking risks and searching for opportunities. If he didn't dare to go just because there was danger, then what was the point of cultivating? He would definitely be pulled further and further away from the other heaven's favorites. Bai Li was expressionless as he continued. Also, the most important thing is that it's not only the heaven's favorites from the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion who will enter Star Moon Ancient City. There are also other heaven's favorites from other heavenly king mansions. A total of 4 heavenly king mansions have the path to Star Moon Ancient City. They will also enter. Hearing this, many of the new members were shocked. On the other hand, the older members were not surprised as they had already known about it. The other members of the Heavenly King Manor will also enter. Many people murmured as their gazes turned serious. The Great Void Holy Dynasty was divided into territories. There were a total of 27 heavenly kings who guarded the territories. Each heavenly king mansion was like a country within a country, managing a large area of territory. However, these heavenly kings' residences did not live in harmony. Instead, they competed with each other and even attacked each other just like 2 different countries. Some of the heavenly king manors even had irreconcilable enmity between them, and they would kill each other as soon as they met. Therefore, if the other heaven's favorites from the Heavenly King Palace entered Star Moon Ancient City, the danger would increase greatly. Alright, that's all I have to say. Is there anyone else who wants to withdraw? It's not too late to withdraw now. Bai Li said. No one backed out. Alright, since no one is backing out, then follow me. I'll allow you to fly. Bai Li said before flying out of the universal camp. Everyone rose into the air and followed Bai Li. After flying for half an hour, they came to a hidden place. The space here was very strange. It seemed to be shrinking in one direction and there was a dark hole in that direction. Could it be a wormhole? Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. Lu Ming had read about wormholes in some ancient books. Wormholes mostly appeared naturally after the universe was born. Wormholes were extremely mysterious. Different wormholes in the universe would connect with each other. After entering a wormhole, one could appear in another place in the universe. Perhaps in an instant he would be transported from one star region to another. Wormholes and teleportation arrays were different. The teleportation formation was man-made. The teleportation was actually across the void, just like a void channel, which also required time. For example, teleportation across star fields would take a lot of time. However, wormholes weren't needed. In an instant they could enter other star fields or even further. Could it be that he had to pass through this wormhole to enter Star Moon Ancient City? Let's go. Bai Li was the first to fly forward and into the wormhole. In a flash, his figure disappeared. Then the old members followed and flew into the wormhole. Let's go too. One of the Wu family's youths said as he flew forward. Lu Ming, Qiu Yu and the rest also entered the wormhole. As soon as he entered the wormhole, Lu Ming was enveloped by a strange energy. He seemed to see a passage in the void that led to the front. Then, in a flash, he disappeared completely. In the next moment, his body felt lighter and the force disappeared. Lu Ming realized that he was standing on a piece of land. Looking back, there was another wormhole behind them. This wormhole was connected to the wormhole in the Star Sky Camp. If they wanted to go back, they could directly enter this wormhole and return to the Star Sky Camp. Following that, Lu Ming sized up his surroundings. They were standing on a flat piece of land. In front of them was a majestic ancient city that stood between the sky and the earth. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. The 4 gates of heaven, earth, man and dog. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. There was an ancient city that was extremely huge. It was like a primeval beast that lay on the ground. The city walls were so high that they pierced through the clouds. Looking from afar, it was impossible to tell how big this giant city was because the edge of the city walls could not be seen. It was as if they could only see one side of the city wall but not the ends of the wall. Star Moon Ancient City. Everyone's heart moved. Let's go. Bai Li flew forward and the others followed closely behind. As they got closer and closer to the city wall, they realized how huge it was. The wall was ancient and filled with the aura of time. It was as if it had crossed time and space from the beginning of the universe. Soon they arrived at the foot of the city wall and found a city gate. No, to be precise, there were 4 doors. Behind the 4 doors, There was a common passage that led into the city. The 4 doors were all different. The door on the far left was the tallest and the most resplendent. It had a noble aura. The second door from the left was silver white and crystal clear. Although it was not as good as the first door, it was still pretty good. The third door was an ordinary-looking stone door. As for the fourth door, it could no longer be called a door. It was a hole that could only fit one person. You've all seen these 4 gates, right? If you want to enter Star Moon Ancient City, you must enter through these 4 gates. Bai Li pointed at the 4 doors. Can't we just fly in from the top of the city wall? A new member asked. Hee, if you're not afraid of death, you can try. An old member sneered. The new member's expression changed immediately. There's a powerful restriction on the city wall. Even if someone above the Divine King realm goes up, they'll die. Bai Li said indifferently, and everyone drew in a cold breath. Those above the God King realm would also die if they went up. That restriction was too terrifying. Then everyone's eyes turned to the 4 doors. Did these 4 doors have a reason? As expected, Bai Li continued his introduction. These 4 doors also have restrictions. Anyone above the God King level can't enter. Only those below the God King level can. These 4 gates, from left to right, are the Heaven Gate, Earth Gate, Human Gate, and Dog Gate. Bai Li paused for a moment. Heaven Sect, Earth Sect, Human Sect, Dog Sect? Everyone's eyes moved. As the name suggested, out of the 4 gates, the Heaven Gate was the most respected and the Dog Gate was the worst. Most of the people's gazes fell on the Heaven Gate. If he wanted to leave, he naturally had to go through the Heavenly Gate. However, no one noticed that many of the senior members had complicated expressions on their faces. Some of them even quietly stepped back, indicating that they would go first. Bai Li also smiled and said, as the name suggests, the Heaven Gate is the most honorable, followed by the Earth Gate. But let me tell you, there is a terrifying restriction on the gate that can test one's talent. The more talented one is, the more they can pass through the honorable gate. If one is not talented enough and wants to pass through by force, they will be killed. Do you understand? You have to act within your means. A fatal disaster. Many of the new members revealed expressions of shock and doubt. They looked at the senior members, but most of them stepped back slightly as if they were asking him to go first. It seems that this door is not easy to pass through. Lu Ming muttered. If it was easy to leave, the old members would have already left. With my talent, I'll definitely pass through the Heaven Gate. At this time, a young man in black stepped out and walked directly toward the Sky Gate. His face was full of confidence. It was obvious that this person was very confident in his own talent. Bai Li's eyes flickered, but he did not stop him. Everyone's eyes fell on the black-clothed youth. The difference was that the new members were all curious, while the old members looked like they were watching a good show. Bang! Bang! And NBSP, although the black-clothed youth was confident, he didn't dare to be careless. He circulated his divine power and his entire body was covered in divine power. 9th level celestial deity. Many people could tell that the black-clothed youth's cultivation had reached the 9th level celestial deity realm. Every step he took was very cautious and he was always on guard. Finally, he stepped into the gate of heaven. However, there was nothing unusual. There was no reaction from the heaven's gate. The young man in black took a few more steps and nothing unusual happened. The confidence on his face grew even stronger. It seems that my talent is enough. The young man in black smiled and continued to walk. However, when he was halfway to the door, he suddenly stopped and stood there motionless. What's going on? Why is he not moving? Many people were puzzled. The test has begun, Bai Li said. As soon as Bai Li's voice fell, he saw the black-clothed young man's body tremble violently. Then he let out a shrill scream and his body flew out of the heaven's gate. He fell heavily on the ground and remained motionless. There was no trace of life in his body. He was dead. The young man in black was dead. The crowd found a bloody mark between the eyebrows of the young man in black. This was a fatal wound. His soul had been destroyed. Many people gasped. They did not see how the young man in black had died. What had happened in the Heaven's Gate? Let me tell you, the 4 doors have nothing to do with one's cultivation level, only one's talent. If one's talent is not high enough, they will either die or be injured. You have to think carefully about which door to go through. Oh, I forgot to tell you. There won't be any obstructions to the last door. As long as one's cultivation level is below the God King realm, they can climb in. Bai Li said. It's impossible to climb in through the dog gate. With my talent, even if I can't go through the heaven gate, I can go through the earth gate. I'll go through the earth gate. Many people were discussing. Then a young man stepped out of the earth gate. The earth gate was different from the heaven gate. As soon as this young man stepped into the earth gate began to glow, and then rays of light shot towards this man. The man roared and used all his strength to block. However, he only managed to block a few moves before the light pierced through all his defenses and pierced through his body. He was torn to pieces and died on the spot. Another heaven's favorite had died. All the new members had ugly expressions. One had to know that the talent of the heaven's favorite just now was definitely not weak. How could the talent of someone who could control divine grade divine power be weak? However, if he couldn't even pass the earth's gate, he would be dead. Even the earth's gate is so difficult. Damn it, did you all pass through the human gate before? A new member looked at the old members. He passed through the human gate? Hee. Some of the older members laughed. No way. Many people's hearts turned cold. Did he pass through the dog gate? A heaven's favorite who could control divine grade divine power passed through the dog gate? I don't believe that I can't even pass through the human gate. With a furious roar, another young man stepped out. This time he chose the human gate. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2991 Can only climb through the dog gate? Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. A young man stepped out, his body exuding a powerful aura. His body was shrouded in divine power. Bang. Step by step he carefully entered the human gate. Buzz. The moment he stepped into the human gate trembled slightly and emitted a dazzling light. Then a divine light flew towards this person. Block it. The man roared and divine power exploded out. He pushed out with both hands and a ferocious beast pounced forward. Boom. The divine light struck the beast, causing a violent boom. The beast trembled violently. Block it, the young man roared and used all his strength. However, the next moment the beast exploded. The young man groaned and retreated. A wound appeared on his chest and it went straight through his bones. Again. The young man roared, his eyes filled with an unyielding look. He had to succeed. He had to enter through the human gate. Otherwise, if he wanted to enter Star Moon Ancient City and obtain the fortune, he had to enter through the dog gate. This was something that he found hard to accept. Bang. He had once again stepped into the human world. However, the human gate wouldn't show any mercy. It continued to glow and a divine light blasted towards him. This time the young man's situation was even worse. His body was almost split apart and he was forced out of the gate and heavily fell to the ground. His aura was weak, but he managed to keep his life. A young man who was familiar with him gave him a divine pill to heal his injuries. I'm telling you, if you can't do it, don't force yourself. Be careful not to lose your lives here. Bailey said coldly. Many people's faces turned ugly. Did they really have to enter through the dog gate? I'll try. Then another new member stepped through the human gate. However, this person was sent flying out of the human gate like the previous one, but his injuries were lighter. Those without talent better not come forward. Obediently leave through the dog gate in case you get injured. An old member said with a smile. That's right. I wonder how many of the new members will pass through the dog gate. Another senior member laughed in disdain. I'll do it. At this time a cold voice was heard and a young man in a blood-red robe stepped out. Lu Ming recognized the man. He was Wu Shui's senior brother. It's him. Many of the new members' eyes lit up. The blood-robed young man was definitely the best among this batch of new members. If he could not enter through the human gate, then most of the new members would probably enter through the dog gate. The blood-robed young man's face was cold, and his body was covered in blood-red divine power. Step by step he stepped into the human gate. Just like before, when the blood-robed young man stepped through the human gate lit up. A divine light shot towards the blood-robed young man. Blood pool abyss. The blood-robed young man roared and pushed his hands out. In front of him a deep abyss appeared. In the abyss there was a blood-red mist rolling, giving off a terrifying aura. The abyss spread forward and enveloped the divine light from the human gate. Boom, boom, boom. Within the abyss, there were loud rumbles and constant quakes, as if it was going to explode at any moment. And NBC stop. The blood-robed youth shouted, his divine power constantly circulating. The veins on his face bulged as he tried to stabilize the blood pool. Slowly, the quaking in the abyss slowed down and finally disappeared. Who? The blood-robed young man let out a long breath and looked overjoyed. He took a deep breath and continued to step forward. After that, the human gate was very stable. There was nothing unusual. The blood-robed young man passed through the human gate smoothly and came to the common passage behind the 4 doors. Passed. Many of the new members were overjoyed. Finally, someone passed. As long as they passed, it meant that it was not an impossible task. The power will be different as the cultivation level changes. Lu Ming pondered. Through his observation just now, Lu Ming discovered that the cultivation levels of the previous batches of people who entered the human gate were different. However, the power that erupted from the human gate would also be different. The higher one's cultivation, the stronger the power. No wonder Bailey said that the test of the 4 doors had nothing to do with cultivation but with talent. This gate could test one's talent. After the blood-robed young man passed through the passageway, he did not immediately enter Star Moon Ancient City. Instead, he stood there and watched. He wanted to see who would be able to pass through the Earth Gate and if anyone would be able to pass through the Sky Gate. Following that, more and more people stepped forward. However, they were all new members. The old members had no intention of making a move and were just watching from the side. Most of the new members had chosen the human sect. Some people failed while others succeeded. Lu Ming realized that less than half of the people could pass through the human gate. Most of them had failed. Those who had failed walked to the side dejectedly, not planning to pass through the dog door immediately. Even if he wanted to pass through the dog gate, he had to wait until the end. With so many people watching, how embarrassing would that be? Bang! Right at this moment, a figure stepped out, attracting everyone's attention. This was because this person was not stepping toward the human gate but the Earth Gate. Jin Xing. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. The person who stepped into the Earth's Gate was Jin Xing. It's him, Jin Xing of the Jin family. The others also recognized Jin Xing. It said that Jin Xing is one of the 4 most outstanding members of the Jin family's younger generation. Although he's young, his talent is extremely terrifying. That's right. The Jin family is amazing. There are many geniuses, especially in this generation. There are 4 terrifying heaven's favorites. Each one is more monstrous than the last. I wonder if Jin Xing will be able to pass through the Earth Gate. Many people were discussing this. The Jin family was one of the top families in the 9 Absolute Heavenly King Mansion. They were very powerful. Everyone's eyes fell on Jin Xing. Jin Xing's entire body was covered in golden light, making him look like a man of gold. 7th level celestial deity. Back then, in the Qin Heaven Starfield, Jin Xing's cultivation level was at the 6th level heavenly deity. Now he had reached the 7th level heavenly deity. Thump. Finally, he stepped into the Earth Gate. The Earth Gate trembled slightly. Then a bright light filled the air. A few beams of divine light shot towards Jin Xing. There was only 1 divine light in the human gate while there were 3 in the Earth Gate, and the light seemed to be more resplendent. Void severing hand. Jin Xing roared. Both of his palms turned golden and he struck out continuously. A terrifying whistling sound erupted in the air. The power of the void-breaking hand was extremely shocking. It collided with the 3 beams of light from the Earth's Gate. Thump, thump, thump. With 3 terrifying explosions, the void exploded and the force spread in all directions. Jin Xing's entire body was golden and it was extremely dazzling. Did you block it? Many people's hearts were in their throats as they watched with wide eyes. The next moment the light dimmed. Everyone saw Jin Xing standing upright on the Earth Gate, uninjured. I blocked it. Someone exclaimed. He can pass through the Earth Gate. This time even many of the older members were surprised. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2991 Gold Ingot. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. As one of the 4 heroes of the Jin clan, he is indeed extraordinary. Many people sighed. This time there's another one of the 4 heroes of Jin family. I heard that he has already reached the half-step Divine King realm. I wonder which door he will pass through. It's Gold Ingot. Gold Ingot has already been to Star Moon Ancient City once. Last time he entered through the Earth Gate. This time he's most likely going to charge at the Heaven Gate. I'm looking forward to it. Many people were discussing and looking at the other golden-robed young man. The young man was tall and sturdy. He was Jin Yuan, one of the 4 heroes of the Jin clan. The 4 heroes of the Jin clan were not ranked according to their cultivation, but by their talent. In terms of cultivation, there were many people in the younger generation of the Jin family who were above Jin Xing. Jin Yuan placed his hands behind his back. He obviously didn't plan to attack now. Bang! Bang! After Jin Xing blocked a wave of attacks from the Earth's Gate, there were no more abnormalities on the Earth's Gate. He continued to move forward and stepped into the passage behind the gate. However, he did not enter Star Moon Ancient City through the passageway. Instead, he stood there and watched. In fact, among the people who had passed through the gate, almost none of them had entered Star Moon Ancient City. They were all standing in the passageway to watch. This time they would be able to stay in Star Moon Ancient City for 10 years. They had plenty of time, so they were not in a hurry. You old members are still not moving? Let me see if your potential has improved after so many years. At this time Bai Li spoke and looked at the old members. Talent was not always the same. Generally speaking, one's talent was determined by the heavens, but in fact it was not necessarily so. In the world there were some rare treasures that could increase one's potential and accumulate more potential. Some treasures could even increase one's comprehension. Lu Ming's comprehension had improved when he participated in the War of Transportation in the Divine Wilderness continent. The most important thing was Shen power. The talents of those who controlled divine-grade divine power could also be improved as their degree of awakening of divine power increased. Just think about it, those primitive gods that were born at the beginning of the universe had such terrifying talents. Within the divine-grade divine power, there were traces of primitive gods. When divine power was awakened, the cultivator's innate talent would also increase greatly. So, just because he couldn't last time didn't mean he couldn't now. He couldn't pass through the human gate last time, but that didn't mean he couldn't do it now. Bai Li wanted to see how much progress those old members had made. "I'll do it." As soon as Bai Li finished speaking, an old member stepped out. This person released his aura and was a 9th-level celestial deity. He walked towards the human gate with a solemn expression. The last time he came here he didn't pass through the human gate. He had to climb through the dog gate in humiliation. This time he must pass through the human gate. Bang! He stepped into the human gate and instantly the human gate lit up and a divine light slashed at him. He let out an angry roar and tried his best to block the divine light. In the end he was severely injured and coughed up a large amount of blood. However, he managed to block it and the divine light was destroyed by him. "Ha, I passed. The young man laughed wildly and stepped into the passage, his face full of excitement. He had not passed the last time. This time he had cultivated hard. The degree of Shen power awakening had increased and he had finally passed through the human gate. The eyes of many old members lit up as they saw hope. "I'll do it." Immediately, another old member walked towards the human gate. This senior member had also failed to pass through the human gate last time. He had entered through the dog gate. When he saw the young man in front of him pass through the human gate, his confidence was greatly boosted. However, when he stepped through the human gate and was attacked, he let out a blood-curdling screech and was sent flying out. He was severely injured. He had failed. "Damn it!" This person roared angrily, extremely unwilling. He had passed through the dog's gate last time and this time he had to pass through the dog's gate again. His face was burning. After all, it wasn't that easy to improve one's talent. The young man who had been the first to go up had been very confident. As for the person behind him, although his cultivation had improved, his talent had not improved. Of course he had failed. The remaining people's faces turned grave. Then more and more people came forward. However, compared to the new members, the old members had a much higher chance of success. More than half of them passed through the human gate. Of course, those who didn't pass through the human gate had extremely ugly expressions. Some of the older members had even started to attack the Earth's gate and many of them had succeeded. These successful people had all awakened their divine power to a high degree. They had reached 80% to 90% and were about to awaken the origin divine power factor. "Look, Gold Ingot is going to make a move." Suddenly, a voice rang out, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. As expected, Jin Yuan moved. Step by step he walked toward the 4 doors. Which gate is he going to choose? Earth or heaven? Someone murmured and everyone started to guess. He chose the Heaven's Gate. Someone exclaimed because Jin Yuan's figure was walking toward the Heaven Gate. Many people's eyes were filled with anticipation. This time, there was already a person who didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth who had entered the Heavenly Gate. Other than being killed in the end, no one else had entered the Heavenly Gate. Gold ingot, can you succeed? Last time Jin Yuan had stepped through the Earth Gate. As he neared the Heaven's Gate, a bright golden light appeared on Jin Yuan's body. Layers of golden divine power enveloped him, and an ancient aura emanated from his body. Origin divine power factor. Bailey exclaimed in a low voice and his eyes suddenly lit up. What? Origin divine power factor? Jin Yuan has awakened the origin divine power factor? So terrifying. He can awaken the origin divine power factor at the half-step divine king realm. No wonder he is one of the 4 heroes of the Jin family. Many people exclaimed. It was very, very difficult to awaken the origin divine power factor. Even geniuses had to enter the divine king realm before they could awaken the origin divine power factor. On the other hand, the majority of people might not even be able to awaken the divine power factor even if they became god kings. There were very, very few people below the god king level who could awaken the origin divine power factor. Every single one of them was a genius among geniuses. Jin Yuan was one of those people. The last time he came to Star Moon Ancient City, Jin Yuan had yet to awaken the origin divine power factor. This time he has successfully awakened the origin divine power factor. His talent has increased greatly, and it is very likely that he will pass through the Heaven's Gate. Some people were discussing. Meanwhile, Jin Yuan had already stepped into the Heavenly Gate. The Heaven Gate, Earth Gate and Human Gate were all different. The front section of the Heaven's Gate didn't have any abnormalities. When Jin Yuan was halfway there, he suddenly stopped and started to move. It began. Everyone knew that the Heaven's Gate's assessment had just begun. Everyone held their breath and watched quietly. They were guessing whether gold ingot could pass through the Heavenly Gate. Every time they came to Star Moon Ancient City, there were very few people who could pass through the Heaven Gate. Sometimes not even one person could pass through. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Autumn Moon crossing the Heaven Gate. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. Time passed by slowly. After 15 minutes, Jin Yuan's body finally trembled. Many people's hearts skipped a beat. Would gold ingot be able to pass? The next moment everyone knew the answer. A powerful aura burst out of Jin Yuan's body. He stood straight and didn't retreat, but his face was a little pale. He stepped forward and continued to walk inside. He passed, he really passed through the Heaven Gate. That's amazing. Jin Yuan, who entered Star Moon Ancient City this time, is probably one of the strongest Heaven's favorites. Indeed, a half-step divine king has awakened the origin divine power factor. He is almost invincible under the divine king realm. Many people looked at Jin Yuan with deep fear. As half-step divine kings, those who had not awakened the origin divine power factor would probably not be able to take a single blow from Jin Yuan if they did not have terrifying secret techniques. In the end, Jin Yuan stepped into the passage and turned to look in their direction. He also wanted to see if there was anyone else who could pass through the Heavenly Gate. Gold ingot, you've got some skills. Let me give it a try. At this moment, another young man stepped out. This young man was wearing an animal skin coat and had the appearance of a nouveau riche. However, no one dared to underestimate this person. This was because the aura that this person exuded was also extremely terrifying. It was filled with an ancient aura which was quite similar to the aura that Jin Yuan exuded. Origin divine power factor. Many people were shocked. This person was also a peerless genius who had awakened the origin of divine power. This was because the origin divine power was the divine power controlled by the original gods. It was ancient, and once the origin divine power factor was awakened, it would naturally emit an ancient and desolate aura. This time, 2 people had actually awakened the origin divine power factor. This person was very direct and also stepped into the Heavenly Gate. He stopped halfway and woke up a moment later. He had successfully passed through the Heavenly Gate in the same time as Jin Xing. Their gazes collided and sparks flew. However, everyone's shock did not stop. That was because 2 more Heaven's favorites stepped out and walked towards the Heaven Gate. They passed. They had all awakened the origin divine power factor. This batch isn't bad. There are actually 4 people below the God King level who have awakened the Origin Divine Power Factor. Bai Li smiled. Those who were able to awaken the Origin Divine Power Factor while still below the God King level had a limitless future. Brother Lu, well, go too. Wu Ming and Wu Yu said. Then they went up with the other Wu family's supreme talents. As a result, Wu Ming and Wu Yu finally passed through the human gate despite their injuries. As for the Wu family, one of their elites had passed the Earth Gate. Chiyo, let's go too. Which door do you want to go through? Lu Ming asked Chiyo. Young master, I want to try the Heaven's Gate. Chiyo blinked her eyes and looked at the Heaven's Gate curiously. Then let's try. Lu Ming smiled. Although the Heaven's Gate was dangerous, he believed in Chiyo. If Jin Yuan and the others could pass, he didn't believe that Chiyo couldn't. Although Chiyo had not awakened the Origin Divine Power Factor, she had awakened the 9 Orifice Saint Heart. He was only at the first heaven, and his talent could not be compared to the 9 Orifice Saint Heart. Young master, I'll go over and wait for you. Chiyo smiled and floated out. What a beautiful woman. Many people's eyes lit up when they saw Chiyo. However, in the next moment, everyone's eyes widened. Chiyo was actually walking towards the Heaven Gate. You want to enter the Heavenly Gate? Someone exclaimed and stuttered. Even Wu Ming, Wu Yu and the others were shocked. Lady Chiyo, you can't. This gate is extremely dangerous. Wu Ming could not help but call out. That's right, young lady. This is not a joke. It's life-threatening. We have to be careful. The others also chimed in. Chiyo was so beautiful, it would be a pity if she died. Thank you, but I want to try. Chiyo smiled and continued to walk into the Heaven Gate. An aura emanated from her body. 2nd level celestial deity. Her cultivation is only at the 2nd level celestial deity realm. With such a low cultivation, it's impossible to awaken the Origin Divine Power Factor. What a pity, what a pity. Many people sighed. They thought that Chiyo was most likely going to die. Soon Chiyo arrived at the center of the Heaven Gate and stopped. Everyone watched with rapt attention. Although many people thought that it was impossible for Chiyo to pass, they still hoped that she would pass. After all, it was a pity for such a beautiful woman to die here. Time slowly passed by. About 5 minutes passed. Look, she's moving. How is it? That's not right. Someone exclaimed. At this moment Chiyo moved. However, she was not blasted out as expected. Instead, she stood there steadily. Did he pass? That's impossible, right? However, at the next moment, they had no choice but to accept this fact because Chiyo turned around and smiled at Lu Ming. She said, Young master, I'll head over first. With that, he floated forward and landed on the passage. He really passed? How was this possible? A 2nd-level heavenly deity who had not awakened the Origin Divine Power Factor was actually able to pass through the heavenly gates. How terrifying was his talent! Many young men's eyes were burning with desire. With such talent and beauty, many people's hearts began to burn. If he could get such a beauty to be his wife, how cool would that be? Wait a minute. Following that, many people's gazes could not help but land on Lu Ming. Just now, Chiyo had addressed Lu Ming as young master. Such a beautiful and talented person was actually someone else's maidservant. This brat, what capabilities does he have? I'll have to find a chance to warn this kid. Many people snorted coldly in their hearts and began to think of some ideas. Lu Ming naturally noticed these gazes, but he ignored them and said, Chiyo, I'll be right there. With that, Lu Ming stepped out. The door he was walking towards was naturally the Heaven's Gate. What? This kid also used the Heavenly Gate. It can't be. Does he think it's that easy to get to the Heaven's Gate? I don't believe that he can pass through the Heaven's Gate. Many people murmured and glared at Lu Ming. Many people could tell that his cultivation was at the 4th level of the celestial deity realm. It was already a miracle that Chiyo could pass the test. They did not believe that Lu Ming could pass it too. Everyone's eyes were on Lu Ming. This included Jin Xing, Jin Yuan and some of the Qin clan's geniuses. I hope this kid dies in the Heaven's Gate. One of the Qin clan's elites sneered. If Lu Ming had died in the Sky Gate, they would not have to take action. Bai Li's gaze also fell on Lu Ming. He was extremely curious. He was already very surprised when Chiyo passed the Sky Gate. Could Lu Ming pass it? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2994 Difficulty lowered? Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. There was a faint smile on Lu Ming's face as he walked into the sky gate unhurriedly. Soon they arrived at the center of the heaven gate. As soon as he walked to the center of the sky gate, Lu Ming felt a force enveloping him. This force was irresistible and ancient. It enveloped Lu Ming's body, rendering him immobile. Following that, Lu Ming felt his vision turn black. The next moment he appeared on a platform. My spirit. Lu Ming was stunned. He knew that his physical body was definitely still outside. What had appeared here was his spiritual will. There would definitely be a test waiting for him next. As expected, a figure appeared in front of him. The figure's appearance could not be seen clearly, but it was like a human shadow. Whoosh. The shadow moved. There was a long sword in his hand. He thrust the sword at Lu Ming as fast as lightning. Break the sky. With a single thought, a long spear condensed in Lu Ming's hand and he thrust it out. Boom. The long spear and the sword shadow collided. Lu Ming felt an extremely terrifying sword chi rushing towards him. The long spear in his hand collapsed instantly. He retreated rapidly and was almost pierced by the sword. What a powerful force. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. Although he had attacked in a hurry and did not activate the battle formula, with the thick Shin power he had now, a casual spear attack could kill an enemy that was several levels higher. However, the result was that he was forced to retreat. One could only imagine how it would be possible for anyone else to pass. Ordinary geniuses would only be insta-killed. Whoosh. The shadow missed its first attack and continued to attack at an astonishing speed. Sword shadows shot toward Lu Ming one after another. Double the combat power. With a thought, he activated the double battle strength of the battle character formula. Instantly, his body was filled with energy. It's really possible. Just the spiritual will entering can trigger the battle formula. Lu Ming himself was also shocked. He had only wanted to give it a try, but he had not expected it to work. After triggering the doubling of combat strength, Lu Ming's combat strength soared and he swept the long spear horizontally. Bang, bang, bang. After activating the battle symbol art that doubled his combat strength, Lu Ming's combat strength was completely above his opponent's. As the spear ray crushed over, his opponent's sword shadows collapsed one after another. In the end, the long spear struck the shadow's body. The shadow's body directly exploded and turned into a fake. There should be more. Lu Ming muttered. He didn't believe that he would pass through the heaven gate so easily. Indeed, the next moment, 3 shadows appeared in front of him and charged toward Lu Ming. However, even the 3 shadows were no match for the current Lu Ming. Moon-slaying sword. Lu Ming cast the second move of the 3 indestructible strikes. The crescent-shaped spear ray swept across and one of the shadows was destroyed. Soon the 3 shadows were all killed. However, it wasn't over yet. After the 3 shadows disappeared, 9 more shadows appeared. The 9 shadows joined hands to set up a large array, and its power increased many times. Streaks of terrifying sword shadows slashed at Lu Ming with terrifying power. There was no doubt that if Lu Ming was hit by the sword shadow, his body would be severely injured. In the beginning, one person entered the heavenly gate and died. There was a bloody mark between his brows and his soul was destroyed. Most likely he had suffered such an attack. This made Lu Ming feel some pressure. 4 times the battle power. Lu Ming could not be bothered to delay any further. He immediately activated the battle formula that increased his combat strength by 4 times. After erupting with 4 times his combat strength, Lu Ming naturally finished off his opponent in an overwhelming manner. As the long spear pressed down, the black shadow exploded continuously and finally disappeared. Is it over? Can't be that fast. Lu Ming muttered. As expected, it was not that simple. In the next moment, 18 black shadows appeared, forming a large array and charging toward Lu Ming. Do you want to try the ancient god body? Forget it, I'd better keep a low profile. Lu Ming thought about it and decided not to use the ancient god body. After using the ancient god body, he would definitely be crushed again. If this was the last round, Lu Ming's time was too short. It had only been slightly more than a minute since he had entered this place. Previously, Jin Yuan and the others had taken 15 minutes. Qiu Yu had also used 5 minutes. If he had taken care of it in a minute, it would have been too shocking. Therefore he began to fight with the 18 shadows. Even a large array formed by 18 shadows was not a match for Lu Ming now. Therefore Lu Ming was able to deal with it easily. Soon 5 minutes had passed. Lu Ming's spear suddenly changed and its power increased. Boom! The spear radiance crushed down like a mountain and destroyed the opponent's formation. Then he attacked continuously and killed all 18 shadows. I don't think so. Lu Ming muttered. If there were more, he didn't believe that gold ingot and the others could pass. Indeed, after the shadow disappeared, a force appeared. Lu Ming's vision turned black again. The next moment, when he opened his eyes, he realized that he was still standing in the middle of the sky gate. It's not that difficult. Lu Ming stretched lazily and smiled at Qiu. He then stepped forward, passed through the heaven's gate and walked to Qiu's side. It's passed? Many people were dumbfounded and completely stunned. 1 autumn month had passed and now Lu Ming had passed again. A 2nd-level celestial deity and a 4th-level celestial deity. What was going on? Were their talents really that terrifying? Humph. The Qin family, Jin Xing and the others all had gloomy expressions. This time it's incredible. Bai Li's eyes glowed as he scanned Lu Ming and Qiu from head to toe. He knew the difficulty of the Heaven's Gate better than anyone else. To be able to pass without awakening the origin divine power factor, one's talent must be unimaginably high. It was usually hard to come across such a genius, but now 2 of them had appeared. Awesome. Wu Ming, Wu Yu and a few other members of the Wu family were full of praise. I don't believe it. Did the difficulty of the Heaven's Gate drop this time? At this moment, someone shouted and a young man in a yellow robe stepped out. It's been reduced? Many people were stunned. That's right. I suspect that the difficulty of the heavenly gates has been lowered this time. Otherwise, how could so many people have passed? Even 2 2nd and 4th level heavenly deities who have not awakened the divine power gene have passed? I don't believe it. The yellow-robed youth said. But someone tried it before and was killed in an instant. Someone asked. That's because that person is too useless. The yellow-robed youth said. If you think that the difficulty has decreased, then you can give it a try. Jin Yuan snorted. If the yellow-robed young man said that the difficulty of the Heaven's Gate had been lowered, wasn't he doubting his talent? Of course he was unhappy. That's just what I want. I was planning to give it a try. The yellow-robed young man said. Then he walked toward the Heaven's Gate. His aura bloomed and a powerful pressure spread in all directions. This man was also a half-step divine king. I've only awakened 80% of my divine power. Jin Yuan snorted. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2994 Entering Star Moon Ancient City. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. The young man in the yellow robe released his divine power. Jin Yuan could tell the degree of the awakening of the young man's divine power. It was equivalent to an 80% awakening. Even the 2 of them can pass. I have awakened 80% of my divine power. That's enough. The yellow-robed young man said coldly. Then he stepped forward and stepped into the heavenly gate. However, when he stepped into the sky gate, his expression turned serious. Although he had said that the difficulty of the sky gate had been reduced, he didn't dare to relax in the slightest and was on full alert. When he was halfway to the sky gate, he stopped moving just like Lu Ming. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the yellow-robed young man. If the yellow-robed young man could pass through the sky gate, it meant that the difficulty of the sky gate had indeed been reduced. In the blink of an eye, 2 minutes had passed. Suddenly, the yellow-robed youth's body trembled. How is it? Everyone's heart trembled. Then the yellow-robed young man let out a blood-curdling screech. His body flew out of the heavenly gate as if he had been hit by a giant beast. He crashed onto the ground and spat out a large mouthful of blood. His aura was extremely weak. Everyone saw that there was a crack between the yellow-robed young man's eyebrows, from which blood was flowing. The yellow-robed young man's eyes were filled with fear. He had almost died. It was obvious that the yellow-robed youth had failed. He had been defeated so badly that he had almost been left behind forever. The difficulty of the Heaven's Gate has not decreased at all. Someone muttered. Everyone's attention returned to Lu Ming and Qiu. The difficulty of the Heaven's Gate was not reduced, but Lu Ming and Qiu took 5 minutes each to pass it. From this, it could be seen that the 2 of them were terrifyingly talented. In particular, Jin Xing Jin Yuan, and a few other paragons who had passed through the Heaven's Gate looked at Lu Ming with killing intent and solemnness. Everyone, I'll leave it to you to enter Star Moon Ancient City. Lu Ming must die in the Ancient City. At this moment, a few of the Qin clan's geniuses were secretly sending messages to the other geniuses. He was sending messages to a few geniuses of the aristocratic families that were on good terms with the Qin family. Don't worry. As long as we meet him in Star Moon Ancient City, we won't let him come out alive. The geniuses from the aristocratic families replied. What? At that moment Lu Ming seemed to have sensed something. He suddenly turned to look in the direction of the Qin family's paragon. Just now he had felt many killing intents land on him. It seems that other than the Jin family and the Qin family, there are still geniuses from other aristocratic families who want to kill me. Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. If they wanted to kill him, they had to be prepared to be killed by him. Following that, more people chose to enter through the door. Chua, let's go. Lu Ming looked at it for a while and lost interest. He held Chiu Yu's hand and walked toward the passage. Yes, let's go too. The experts have all made their moves. There's nothing to see now. It's boring to watch people climb through the dog gate. Let's go. As soon as Lu Ming and Chiu Yu left, the others could not sit still any longer. They moved one after another and walked into the passage. Inside the passageway was not Star Moon Ancient City, but a door of light. A teleportation gate. It seems like this is the gate that leads to the inner part of Star Moon Ancient City. Lu Ming smiled and stepped into the door of light with Chiu Yu. After that, the others stepped into the light door and disappeared. After most of the people had entered the door of light, the people outside also moved. Some of them bowed and crawled through the dog gate with red faces. Then they ran with their heads down and entered the light gate. After more than half a day, everyone had entered the light door, leaving Bai Li alone outside. All the heaven's favorites from the 4 heavenly king manors are here. I hope they won't suffer too many losses this time. I also hope they will gain something. Bai Li muttered and sat down cross-legged outside. He was going to wait here for 10 years. As soon as Lu Ming stepped through the door of light, he felt as if he was traversing through the void. The next moment Lu Ming found himself in a canyon. What? Lu Ming frowned because he realized that Chiu Yu was not by his side. Lu Ming rose into the air and looked around. In the end he realized that he was in a primeval forest and Chiu Yu was nowhere to be seen. I've miscalculated. It turns out that the teleportation to Star Moon Ancient City is random. Lu Ming muttered and could not help but feel worried. Chiu Yu's cultivation was the weakest among the geniuses who entered Star Moon Ancient City this time around. She was only a 2nd-level heavenly god. If he ran into someone with ill intentions, he would probably be in danger. Chue is also a person of great fortune, she should be fine. Lu Ming consoled himself. He took out the voice transmission jade talisman and realized that he could not transmit his voice. I'd better cultivate while I look for Chiu Yu. Lu Ming pondered and then looked around. In the end he realized that he didn't know where he was at all. He was surrounded by the primeval forest. I didn't expect that there would be a primeval forest in Star Moon Ancient City. Lu Ming muttered. He then chose a random direction and flew forward. The primitive forest was dense with vegetation and dense divine qi, but there was not a single living being. There were no divine beasts or desolate beasts. It was deathly silent. After flying for a few hours, Lu Ming was still in the primeval forest. I'm so unlucky. I was teleported to the wilderness as soon as I came in. Lu Ming pursed his lips and cast the 9 heavenly Kun Ping technique. He transformed into a Kun Ping and flew across the 9 heavens. Just like that, Lu Ming flew for a day before he finally flew out of the primeval forest and saw the buildings. There were many palaces built on a mountain peak ahead. Only after flying in did he realize that these palaces were already very dilapidated, and only ruins were left. However, it was left behind from the early days of the Heaven Palace era after all. Lu Ming was very curious and planned to go in and take a look. Boom. And NBSP at this moment, a boom erupted from the ruins. Divine power surged and shattered stone flew everywhere. Then 2 figures flew out from the ruins and fought fiercely in the air. It was obvious that the 2 of them were the geniuses of the Universal Camp, and they were currently engaged in an intense battle. However, when they saw Lu Ming, they were shocked and retreated. It's him. When the 2 of them saw Lu Ming, they immediately recognized him. After all, Lu Ming had passed through the Heaven's Gate previously and the prodigies of the Universal Camp had remembered him. It's this brat. Previously the Qin family asked my Sun family to help them kill this person. It seems that my luck is not bad to have met this person the moment I arrived. Furthermore, this person's talent is so high. He might have a great opportunity on him. If I kill him, his opportunity will be mine. One of the big-nosed young men's eyes flickered with killing intent, but at the same time there was also greed. Wang Tong, let's forget about today's matter. You can go. I won't argue with you. Thinking of this, the big-nosed young man looked at the person who had just fought with him and said, if you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 2996 Statue. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicronum. The big-nosed young man said, asking the person who had just fought with him to leave. The other party sneered, but he still chose to leave in the end. His strength was slightly weaker than the big-nosed young man. If he continued to fight, he would most likely not be his opponent as time went on. He sneered and swept a glance at Lu Ming. Then he turned into a rainbow and left the place. As soon as the young man left, the big-nosed young man's figure flashed and he appeared beside Lu Ming. A wisp of qi activity locked onto Lu Ming. You want to kill me? Lu Ming said faintly with a faint smile on his face. You're not stupid either. The big-nosed young man's eyes turned cold. A powerful aura burst out and enveloped the area within a radius of 10,000 miles. The big-nosed young man had the cultivation of a 9th-tier celestial deity. Furthermore, his divine power had also awakened to a certain extent, but it was not even 50%. If I remember correctly, I didn't offend you. Tell me who sent you to kill me. The Jin family or the Qin family? Lu Ming asked. Why are you asking so many questions when you're about to die? The big-nosed young man sneered. Oh, it's fine if you don't want to tell me. Other than the Jin family, there's only the Qin family. But speaking of which, your information isn't that well informed. Are you sure you can kill me? Lu Ming smiled faintly. This big-nosed young man most likely did not know that he had defeated Ice Hawk. Otherwise he would not be so confident. What do you mean? The big-nosed young man was slightly stunned. I mean, I'll send you on your way now. Lu Ming's cold voice rang out. As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Ming stepped forward. His body swelled up rapidly and he transformed into an ancient god body. At the same time, he activated the battle formula that multiplied his combat power by 4. A violent aura pressed toward the big-nosed young man. This aura. It's impossible. As soon as he sensed Lu Ming's aura, the big-nosed young man's expression changed drastically and he was horrified. Lu Ming's aura made his heart tremble. Boom. Lu Ming launched an attack. A huge spear ray pressed toward the big-nosed young man. Vanguard Battle Dao. The big-nosed young man roared. A long spear appeared in his hand. He waved the long spear and suddenly, chariots appeared in the sky. There were even warriors on the chariots. The chariot rumbled toward Lu Ming. The big-nosed young man came from the Sun family, a great aristocratic family in the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion. This secret skill was unique to the Sun family and its power was astonishing. However, when Lu Ming's spear ray pressed down, the chariots shattered one by one. In an instant, all the chariots were shattered. Boom. As the spear radiance pressed down, the big-nosed young man retreated and spat out a large mouthful of blood. How is that possible? How can he be so strong? The big-nosed young man roared in his heart. Indeed, he did not know that Lu Ming had defeated Leng Ying. Therefore he thought that Lu Ming was merely a 4th-level celestial deity. No matter how talented he was, he would not be that strong. He had never expected that he would be severely injured in just one move. Run. The big-nosed young man immediately turned around and ran. It's too late to escape now. Lu Ming's cold voice was heard. He cast the 9 heavenly Kunping technique and a Kunping was formed. With a flap of its wings, Lu Ming quickly chased after the big-nosed young man. Space breaking. Lu Ming waved his spear and thrust it forward. A ray of spear light shot toward the big-nosed young man at an alarming speed. Seeing that he could not escape, the big-nosed young man roared and brandished his spear to block. However, the result was that he was sent flying again, flying thousands of miles. His arm had exploded and his injuries were even more serious. The big-nosed young man's combat strength was about the same as Leng Ying's. Back then Lu Ming had to put in some effort when he was fighting Ling Ying. However, now that Lu Ming was circulating 7 types of divine-grade divine energy in his body, although most of the divine energy was not full, his strength had increased by a notch and he could already crush Ling Ying. Lu Ming, if you dare to kill me, the Sun family will not let you off. The big-nosed young man roared. Kill. Lu Ming could not be bothered to waste his breath on the other party. He launched a storm of attacks. The big-nosed young man barely managed to block a few more moves before he was smacked on the head by Lu Ming's spear and killed. With a wave of his hand he kept the big-nosed young man's storage ring. In a flash, Lu Ming dashed toward the ruins on the mountain peak. This ruin had collapsed for many years. It was conceivable that in the long past, this mountain must have been covered with a big formation. Otherwise, it was impossible for the ruins to still exist after such a long time. It was likely that the sea had changed into mulberry fields and nothing was left. Lu Ming looked around and was slightly disappointed as he did not find anything. Lu Ming did not stop. He rose into the air and left the place. Lu Ming did not have any gains for the next day. On this day Lu Ming was flying when he suddenly felt something unusual in front of him. In front of him he could feel a faint pressure. In Star Moon Ancient City he couldn't let go of any abnormalities. Lu Ming's figure moved and flew forward. Not long after, Lu Ming had a discovery. In the wide area in front, there was actually a statue standing there. The statue was huge, at least 100 miles tall, standing in the clouds. However, the statue was headless and only had the lower half of its body. It stood on the ground and the pressure was coming from it. Moreover, the closer he got to the statue, the greater the pressure became. It pressed down on Lu Ming's body, making it more difficult for him to circulate the divine energy in his body. It was as if he was carrying a 1,000-pound chain. Lu Ming saw a few other figures around the statue. Some people were approaching the statue while others were standing still. Their bodies were trembling slightly as if they were resisting the pressure of the statue. He's using the pressure from the statue to polish his foundation. Lu Ming could guess the intention of those people at once. His eyes lit up. Back then, on Magic City Mountain, in order to resist the great formation set up by the 3 great demon masters and more than 2,500 Magic City guards, he had forcibly absorbed the energy of the star core to break through to the next realm. Even though he had successfully broken into the 4th-level celestial deity realm, it also brought him hidden dangers. That was, his foundation was unstable. If his foundation was not stable, even if the divine power in his body was full, it would be difficult for him to break through to the next realm. He would have to spend a lot of time to polish his foundation. This statue was exuding a terrifying pressure. Lu Ming could make use of this pressure to polish his foundation. Lu Ming took a step forward and landed 1,000 miles away from the statue. Then he stepped forward and walked toward the statue. As Lu Ming got closer to the statue, the pressure he felt increased. It was as if he was carrying a divine mountain on his back. It was the same for his Shen power. It was getting harder and harder to circulate. Lu Ming was not shocked. Instead, he was elated. He needed this kind of pressure, the kind of pressure that would affect the divine power. However, the pressure is not enough. Lu Ming muttered and kept walking forward. Soon he had surpassed the 2 young men. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Battling the Qin clan's geniuses. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. It's him. The 2 young men looked at Lu Ming. They had obviously recognized him. However, they only took a casual glance and went back to their cultivation. Not enough, not enough. Continue. Lu Ming kept walking forward, getting closer to the statue. Very quickly, Lu Ming was 100 miles away from the statue. At this point, the pressure from the statue was shockingly strong. Lu Ming's body trembled slightly, and he felt that it was difficult to circulate the divine energy in his body. Alright, this is the place. Lu Ming sat cross-legged, closed his eyes, and began to circulate the universe 1000 Tao scripture to polish his foundation. This cultivation took half a year. In the beginning it was extremely difficult to circulate divine energy. He could only complete 1 cycle after a few days. Now Lu Ming could already complete 1 cycle in an hour. Compared to before, the level of comfort had increased by tens of times. This kind of pressure is really a good place to polish one's foundation. At this moment, Lu Ming ended his cultivation. In just half a year's time, Lu Ming felt that his foundation had become extremely solid. If he was outside, it would be very difficult to achieve this without a few hundred years. You've saved me a lot of time, but I've spent half a year here. It's time to leave. Lu Ming pondered. I wonder how Starmoon Ancient City is doing in half a year. Lu Ming stood up and retreated, leaving the statue. And NBSP, when he was 1,000 li away from the statue, the divine power in his body rumbled and began to move at an astonishing speed. It's so pure and smooth. Lu Ming was overjoyed. After half a year of polishing, his foundation was even more solid than before. There were no obstacles in the circulation of divine power. It was smooth and natural, very rich. Now, as long as the other divine power in his body reached a state of being full, he could start to attempt to charge for 5th-level celestial deity. This half a year has been worth it. Lu Ming smiled and then rose into the air, planning to leave this place. However, at this moment, a few streams of light shot up from the ground not far away. They came from different directions and surrounded Lu Ming. Brat, you've finally finished and come out. One of them sneered. The Qin clan. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. These young men were all from the Qin clan. The people of the Qin clan all had a scale between their eyebrows, which was easy to recognize. It was obvious that the people from the Qin family had been waiting for Lu Ming to leave the area where the statue was. They were waiting for him to attack. That was because Lu Ming was under immense pressure at the statue. It was not convenient for them to take action. Kid, we have wasted a few months for you. We want you to know that there is only one consequence for killing the people of the Qin clan. A youth from the Qin clan exuded a powerful aura. Half-step divine king realm. Furthermore, this person's body faintly exuded a primitive and ancient aura. Although this person had not awakened the origin divine power factor, the degree of awakening was not low. His strength was definitely extremely shocking. For the time being, Lu Ming was not a match for such a prodigy. Moreover, the Qin clan had more than one heaven's favorite of this level. There were two. There were also 2 9th-level celestial deity prodigies. A total of 4 people surrounded Lu Ming. Qin Wuyo, you're just courting death. Lu Ming said coldly. At the same time, his eyes darted around, looking for a way to escape. He definitely couldn't force it. The other party's strength was above his, and it would be foolish to force it. Leaving was the best plan. Who do you think you are? You're just a piece of trash from the Qin Heaven Star system. If my Qin clan wants to kill you, well, kill you. You can only obediently wait to be killed. Do you understand? One of the Qin clan's young men shouted coldly with an arrogant look. Lu Ming only smiled faintly and could not be bothered to reply. What's there to say to this kind of person? Kill. Suddenly, Lu Ming let out a roar and threw out a series of punches. 7 9-clawed divine dragons flew out with a roar and pounced on a half-step divine king expert of the Qin family. You're overestimating yourself. Die. The young man from the Qin clan shouted coldly. His body shook and a violent divine power gushed out. Then he punched out and a huge fist print rushed out, shaking the void. Lu Ming's 7 9-clawed divine dragons crumbled one after another. The man had a proud expression on his face. He was about to say something to show off when he saw Lu Ming's actions and roared, "Be careful." It turned out that Lu Ming did not continue to attack him. Lu Ming's attack on him was just an illusion. After Lu Ming launched his attack, he retreated rapidly and rushed towards a 9th-level celestial deity youth from the Qin family. At the same time, his body expanded rapidly and he transformed into an ancient god body. Lu Ming's goal was to create a diversion and escape. Boom. Lu Ming shot out his spear at the 9th-level heavenly deity Qin clan's prodigy. 7 injury divine fist. The man reacted and threw a punch, sending a huge fist print at Lu Ming. However, a 9th-level celestial deity who had not awakened the origin divine power factor was not Lu Ming's match at all. The spear's gleam struck and the fist print shattered. The Qin clan's heaven's pride expert retreated and coughed out a large mouthful of blood. Lu Ming's figure rushed past him. He then cast the 9 heavenly Kuan Ping technique and charged forward. Stay here. Another half-step divine king from the Qin family attacked as well when he saw Lu Ming's attack. He threw a punch at Lu Ming. Lu Ming was about to fly forward, but he was too slow and the punch landed on his body. Bang! Lu Ming's entire body trembled. He staggered and almost fell. On his back, green scales flew in the air. The fist print had blasted a big hole in his back and blood was dripping from it. I'll remember this. Lu Ming bellowed and continued to fly despite the pain. Chase. The 4 Qin family elites chased after Lu Ming. In the blink of an eye, both parties disappeared from this place. One was chasing while the other was fleeing. In the blink of an eye, they had already flown a distance of several 100,000 miles. Those 2 9th-level heavenly deity Qin clan's geniuses were already unable to keep up with the speed and had fallen behind. However, the 2 half-step divine King Qin family's geniuses were slowly closing the distance between them and Lu Ming. Damn it! Lu Ming's face darkened. He had just taken a blow from a half-step divine King Qin clan's Heaven's Pride expert and was injured. He was not in his peak condition. Otherwise he could have used the 9 heavenly Kun Ping technique and escaped. But now his speed was slightly slower than his opponent. Brat, you can't escape. One of the Qin clan's young men shouted coldly, his killing intent cold. Lu Ming did not say a word and continued flying. Not long after, the distance between the 2 sides closed. 7 Injury Divine Fist. One of the Qin clan's geniuses made his move and threw a punch. This heaven's favorite of the Qin family had probably awakened 60 or even 70% of his divine power. With his half-step divine king cultivation base, his attack was terrifyingly powerful. The space whistled and the terrifying fist force approached Lu Ming in an instant. Moon slaying. Lu Ming turned around and struck out with his long spear. A crescent-shaped spear ray burst out and rushed toward the other party's fist print. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know. Report so we can fix it as soon as possible. The Wu family's help. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. Lu Ming slashed out a crescent-shaped spear ray, which hit the fist print of the Qin clan's paragon. Boom. A deafening boom erupted. The crescent-shaped spear radiance shook violently and then shattered. A powerful force rushed toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming's body trembled and he retreated rapidly. The qi and blood in his body churned and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. The divine power of a half-step divine king was already extremely dense. In addition to the 60 to 70% of the divine power that had been awakened, the power was too shocking. Lu Ming, who had gathered the power of 7 types of divine-grade divine power, could not withstand it. However, the youth from the Qin family was even more shocked. What's going on with this kid? A 4th-level celestial deity being so strong, simply monstrous. And his Shin power feels impure, but why is it so powerful? The Qin clan's young man had many thoughts in his mind. He was extremely puzzled. He could clearly feel that Lu Ming's divine power was mixed and impure. It seemed to be caused by an unstable foundation. However, its power was shockingly strong. A 4th-level heavenly deity who had not awakened the origin divine power factor yet was about to be able to contend with his divine power. He had also thought that Lu Ming's divine power was not mixed and impure. Instead, it contained 7 different types of divine power. After exchanging a move, Lu Ming turned around and continued to fly. You can't escape. The 2 young men from the Qin clan continued to chase after him. At this moment, Lu Ming noticed a mountain peak in front of him. There were a few young men on the peak who seemed to be resting. That is, the Wu clan's prodigy. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. The few youths on the mountain peak were clearly the Wu family's prodigies. Lu Ming saw Wu Ming and Wu Yu among them. At that moment, Wu Ming, Wu Yu and the rest also saw Lu Ming. This ancient god body. It's brother Lu Ming. That's the Qin family. Damn it. Brothers. Wu Ming and Wu Yu immediately recognized Lu Ming. They also noticed the Qin family's prodigy. They did not need to think to know what was going on. They immediately roared. Leave it to us. On the mountain peak, 2 of the Wu family's heaven's favorites flew into the air and charged towards the Qin family's heaven's favorites like 2 shooting stars. 2 half-step divine kings joining hands to deal with a 4th-level heavenly deity. Your Qin family is really shameless. Let us be your opponents. A young man from the Wu family sneered. He slashed out with his sword from a distance. Buzz. A ray of sword light crossed thousands of miles and slashed at a Qin family youth. The sword light was bright and its power was overbearing. The youth from the Qin family had no choice but to stop and block. Boom. He punched out and blocked the sword light. His body also stopped. At the same time, the other genius of the Wu family also made his move and blocked the other young man from the Qin family. The 2 Qin clan's elites were both blocked. This is a matter of my Qin clan. This man killed our Qin clan's genius. Is your Wu clan trying to meddle in our business? A young man from the Qin clan said coldly. So what if I'm a busybody? Lu Ming is a friend of the Wu family. If you want to kill him, it's the same as killing a member of the Wu family. One of the geniuses from the Wu family chuckled. In the 9 absolute heavenly king mansion, the Wu family's strength was not any weaker than the Qin family, so there was no need to fear the Qin family. You guys. The 2 young men from the Qin clan had unsightly expressions. The 2 geniuses from the Wu family were no weaker than him. One of them had even stepped through the Earth Gate. His talent was shocking and his combat strength was above theirs. They knew that with the Wu family's help, they would not be able to kill Lu Ming today. Kid, you're lucky. I hope you can keep going this far. The next time we meet will be the day of your death. One of the Qin family's young men looked at Lu Ming with a cold gaze. This sentence is exactly what I wanted to say to you. The next time we meet will be the day you die. Lu Ming responded indifferently. You would remember the enmity of being hunted down today. Hee, just you? A young man from the Qin family laughed disdainfully before turning around and leaving. Very quickly the 2 youths from the Qin clan disappeared. Brother Lu, are you all right? Wu Yu and Wu Ming flew over. Lu Ming laughed like an ordinary person and said, I'm fine. Thank you for saving me this time. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to escape. If he had not encountered the Wu family's Heaven's Pride expert this time, he would have had to risk his life. The only way for him to go all out was to burn his ancient god heart. After burning his ancient god heart, he would definitely be able to kill the 2 Qin clan geniuses. However, the losses would be too great. It was not worth burning the ancient god heart for 2 Qin family members. Brother Lu, you're too polite. Since we're friends, we can't just sit by and do nothing. One of the Wu family's elites laughed. The other 2 Heaven's Pride experts were Wu Zixiong and Wu Su. Both of them were at the half-step Divine King realm. Among them, Wu Zixiong's talent was even stronger. He had already awakened 90% of his divine power and was not far from completely awakening the origin divine power factor. He had already passed through the Earth's gate before. Of course, it seemed like there was not much difference between 90% and completely awakening the origin divine power factor. However, it was shockingly difficult to achieve. 90% of the people would be stuck and it would be difficult for them to achieve the final breakthrough. Lu Ming smiled and did not say much. There were no words to thank him for his great kindness. He just had to remember it in his heart. Wait, something was wrong. Lu Ming suddenly thought of a problem. Brothers Wu, how did you all get together? Did you all just happen to be teleported here together? Lu Ming asked. No, we were separated when we were teleported here. We only gathered together after communicating with each other through the Jade Talisman. Wu Zixiong said. Jade Voice Transmission Talisman? Could it be that the Jade Voice Transmission Talisman can be used here? Lu Ming said hurriedly. Of course it can be used. But, Brother Lu, what's the matter? Wu Ming asked. Lu Ming's face darkened and a look of worry flashed in his eyes. Not long after he entered, he sent a voice transmission to Qiu Yu. However, the voice transmission Jade Talisman could not be used. He thought that the voice transmission Jade Talisman could not be used here. Immediately, Lu Ming took out his voice transmission Jade Talisman and sent a voice transmission to Qiu Yu. However, the result was that he still could not send a voice transmission. What's going on? Lu Ming's heart sank and his expression turned uglier. Brother Lu, what's wrong? Wu Ming and the others also noticed that something was amiss and asked. Why can't my voice transmission Jade Talisman be transmitted out? Lu Ming told her about him sending a voice transmission to Qiu Yu. It can't be spread? Brother Lu, pass it on to me. Wu Ming said. Lu Ming quickly sent a voice transmission to Wu Ming. However, it was unimpeded. Lu Ming's expression turned even uglier. Could it be that something had really happened to Qiu Yu? Lu Ming clenched his fists tightly. Brother Lu, you don't have to worry. In Star Moon Ancient City, voice transmission is indeed suppressed. If the distance is too far, it's normal that the voice can't be transmitted out. Furthermore, if Lady Qiue is in some isolated place, it's possible that she can't get out. Wu Zixiong consoled Lu Ming. Chapter 2998 Stunning Beauty. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. Wu Zixiong consoled Lu Ming, but Lu Ming's heart was still heavy and he was worried. I hope Qiue is blessed by the heavens. Lu Ming could only comfort himself in this way. Brothers Wu, if you meet Qiu Yu in the future, can you help me look after her? Lu Ming said. Brother Lu, you're being too polite. I'll definitely find some friends to ask around for Lady Qiu's whereabouts. Wu Zixiong said. Thank you, Brother Wu. Lu Ming cupped his fists. By the way, Brother Lu, where are you going next? Wu Zixiong asked again. I've heard that there are some forbidden areas in Star Moon Ancient City. One of them is the land of extreme coldness, and there are extreme cold treasures there. I want to try my luck there. Lu Ming said. Go to the forbidden area? Wu Zixiong's expression slightly congealed, saying, Brother Lu, some of the forbidden areas in Star Moon Ancient City are very dangerous. If you want to go, you must be careful. Thank you, Brother Wu. I will be careful. Lu Ming said with a smile. Brother Lu, keep going north and you'll find the frigid forbidden land. I have a simple map here. You might need it. With that, Wu Zixiong took out a map and passed it to Lu Ming. A map. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He opened it and took a look. There were some circuits and some special places that were all marked. To the north from here, there was a forbidden area known as the Cold Nether Forbidden Area. It was filled with cold nether chi and was extremely dangerous. This map was drawn by the Wu clan's geniuses when they entered Star Moon City. It's relatively simple, but it can be used. Wu Zixiong said. You gave me the map, then you guys. Lu Ming hesitated. Haha, we naturally have a backup. Wu Zixiong laughed. Lu Ming patted his head. He was worried about Qiu Yu and was a little distracted. He was really confused. Of course, the Wu family had a backup of such a map. Lu Ming, I'll take my leave then. See you another day. Lu Ming cupped his fists. Take care. Wu Ming and the others also cupped their fists. Then Lu Ming turned and left, heading north. A few hours later, Lu Ming found a hidden place. He sat cross-legged and consumed a divine healing pill to start healing. Previously, he had taken a blow from the Qin clan's Heaven's favorite and was heavily injured. After a few days, Lu Ming had recovered to his peak state. He then left the place and continued to head north. Star Moon Ancient City was like a world. It was huge and boundless. Lu Ming flew for a few days before he finally arrived at his destination, the Cold Nether Forbidden Grounds. The Cold Nether Forbidden Ground was filled with the chi of the Cold Nether, which was extremely een and cold. It was said that someone had once obtained a treasure of extreme een and extreme cold from the Cold Nether Forbidden Grounds. Lu Ming was looking for such a treasure to speed up the refinement of the star core and to fill up the 5 types of divine-grade divine energy in his body as soon as possible. Then he would break through to the next realm. Looking from afar, not even a blade of grass grew in the Cold Nether Forbidden Grounds, and there was a gray mist floating in the air. This gray mist was the chi of the Cold Nether. Buzz. At this moment, a stream of light flew over from not far away. The next moment the light faded and a figure appeared in the sky. It was a woman. She was tall and had perfect curves. Her skin was as white as snow and she had a peerless face. What a beautiful woman! Even though Lu Ming had seen all kinds of beautiful women, including Xianxia and Qiu Yu, he could not help but admire them. This woman's beauty was not inferior to Qiu Yu, Xianxia, Xianxia, and the others. At this moment the Absolute Beauty also saw Lu Ming. It's you? You're Lu Ming? The Absolute Beauty spoke. Her voice was clear and pleasant to the ears, but it was filled with a faint coldness. That's right, I'm Lu Ming. Lu Ming nodded. Very good. The Absolute Beauty nodded, and a cold killing intent suddenly emanated from her body. Then go to hell, die. The Absolute Beauty shouted as she took a step forward and charged at Lu Ming. At the same time, a terrifying sword light burst out from her hand and slashed at Lu Ming. F***, Lu Ming cursed. He did not expect that this beautiful woman would suddenly attack him. However, Lu Ming was already on his guard when he sensed the killing intent from the Absolute Beauty. As soon as she made her move, Lu Ming activated the battle character formula that increased his combat power by 4 times. Lu Ming waved his long spear and swept it out. Clang. The sword light slashed at Lu Ming's long spear, causing it to shake violently. Wisps of terrifying sword intent passed through the long spear and rushed toward Lu Ming. Sword slashes appeared on Lu Ming's arm and blood was flowing out. As for Lu Ming himself, he retreated rapidly into the Cold Nether Forbidden Grounds. As soon as he entered the Cold Nether Forbidden Grounds and came into contact with the Cold Nether energy, a chill instantly spread through Lu Ming's body, causing him to shiver. With a single thought, 9 ice chains flew out and wrapped around Lu Ming's body, blocking the chill in the surroundings. This woman has such shocking strength. Lu Ming's gaze was fixed on the beautiful woman. This woman's cultivation was at least a half-step divine king. As for the extent of her awakened divine power, Lu Ming had no idea. However, Lu Ming was certain that this lattice abilities were definitely above the 2 half-step divine king geniuses of the Qin clan. I don't know you, why do you want to kill me? Did the Jin family or the Qin family send you? Lu Ming said coldly. He didn't know this woman at all, but she wanted to kill him the moment they met. There was only one explanation, and that was that the Jin and Qin families had asked her to kill him, just like the big-nosed young man from before. What Jin and Qin clan? It has nothing to do with me. I want to kill you. Die. The absolute beauty said coldly. The aura on her body grew stronger. She took a step forward and rushed into the land of the cold nether. Another sword light burst out and slashed at Lu Ming. Ancient god body. Ancient god body. Lu Ming roared. He activated his ancient god body and turned into a green-armored ancient god. He waved his spear and a crescent-shaped spear light slashed out, blocking the opponent's attack. You have some strength. The absolute beauty clearly did not expect Lu Ming to be able to block her attack. She was slightly stunned and her gaze turned even colder. Boom. A terrifying aura rushed out of the beautiful woman's body. It was filled with an ancient aura. This is the origin divine power factor. This B*TH has awakened the origin divine power factor. Lu Ming was really shocked. A half-step divine king who had awakened the origin divine power factor would be able to pass through the heaven gate. Previously, there were a total of 4 people from the universal camp who had revealed their cultivation base. Now it seemed like there was someone who had hidden her cultivation base and strength, and that person was this woman. Or perhaps this woman had entered Star Moon Ancient City after Lu Ming had. No matter what, this level of ability was definitely not something that Lu Ming could withstand. The difference in combat strength was too great. Let's go. Without thinking, Lu Ming turned and left, rushing toward the depths of the land of the cold nether. Chapter 3000 Crazy Woman. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicronum. Lu Ming rushed into the cold nether forbidden ground, hoping to use the cold air in the forbidden ground to shake off the beautiful woman. However, the absolute Bowtie's killing intent towards him was very strong, and she had no intention of letting him go. Lu Ming, die. The absolute beauty shouted. In a flash, she also rushed into the land of the cold nether and chased after Lu Ming. However, after the beautiful woman entered the land of cold nether, her body paused slightly and her speed slowed down slightly. The chi of the cold nether will affect him. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. The Hades chi was extremely cold and the temperature was extremely low. Lu Ming was able to withstand the Hades chi without being affected because he had cultivated the lunar divine technique and had the lunar divine energy in his body. However, the divine power that the beautiful woman cultivated clearly had nothing to do with cold power, so she needed to circulate divine power to block the cold energy. Her speed was naturally affected. Even so, the absolute Bowtie's speed was still faster than Lu Ming's. The distance between them was constantly closing. You can't escape. The beautiful woman's eyes were filled with murderous intent. She looked as if she could not wait to cut Lu Ming into 8 pieces. What benefits did the Jin and Qin families give you to kill me? I can give you double the benefits. Lu Ming roared. What *T Jin and Qin families? What right do they have to ask me to kill you? The absolute beauty said coldly. Not the Jin and Qin families. Which force was it? Is it the force that has been colluding with the Dark Ice clan? Lu Ming's heart suddenly moved and he immediately shouted, I know who you are. The person behind you has colluded with the Dark Ice clan to steal the 9 absolute divine crystal. How dare you? This is a crime that will result in your entire family being exterminated. Lu Ming roared loudly, trying to scare the other party. Nonsense. If I want to kill you, it has nothing to do with anyone else. The absolute beauty sneered coldly and slashed out a beam of sword chi, almost hitting Lu Ming. Lu Ming was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. It has nothing to do with anyone else and you want to kill me? This time Lu Ming was really dumbfounded. When did he offend this crazy woman? Young lady, if I remember correctly, I have never offended you. Could it be that I was drunk and did you? No, if you really have me, why don't I feel anything? Lu Ming shouted and was even more puzzled. Pervert, die. Hearing Lu Ming's words, the absolute beauty was even more furious. She shouted and a few sword lights slashed at Lu Ming's face. Lu Ming hurriedly cast the 9 heavenly Kunping technique to dodge, but his shoulder was still grazed by a sword gleam. The green scales were cut open and blood flowed out. Lu Ming was so frightened that he shivered. His opponent was a half-step divine king and had awakened the origin divine power factor. His attack was terrifyingly sharp and his green scale armor could not block it at all. How did I become a perverted bandit again? Lu Ming was shocked and furious. If not for the fact that he was not the other party's match, he would definitely take the other party down and let him know what a perverted bandit was. But now Lu Ming could only run for his life. He specifically ran towards places with dense frosty qi and used the 9 heavenly Kunping technique to the extreme. Even so, it was still very dangerous, and not long after, several wounds appeared on his body. This crazy woman, why is she chasing me? Lu Ming was really speechless. His eyes were flashing with ruthlessness. He was thinking quickly in his heart, trying to come up with a plan to kill the other party. Lu Ming would not show mercy just because the other party was a beautiful woman. But. At this moment, Lu Ming heard a rustling sound in front of him. There's living being here. Lu Ming was not shocked. Instead, he was happy. The appearance of living creatures at this moment was beneficial to Lu Ming. Buzz. Lu Ming's figure flashed and he rushed towards the source of the sound. Not long after, a huge creature appeared in front of Lu Ming. It was a huge, snow-white centipede that was at least 100 meters long. It crawled on the mountain. At that moment, the giant centipede pounced at Lu Ming the moment it saw him. Before the giant centipede even reached him, it opened its mouth and spat out a thick gray mist. At the same time, a terrifying chill gushed toward Lu Ming. Even Lu Ming's body stiffened. It was also the frosty qi, but the temperature was even lower. It was as if the space had frozen. Lu Ming circulated the divine power of the moon with all his might. At the same time, he used the 9 ice chains to protect himself and blocked the invasion of the cold air. At the same time, Lu Ming dodged the giant centipede's attack in a flash. However, the giant centipede twisted its body and its row of sharp claws slashed at Lu Ming like a divine knife. Lu Ming was shocked and raised his spear to block it. Clang! Lu Ming's body shook violently and he was sent flying. However, at this time the beautiful woman had also caught up. She was also enveloped by the giant centipede's cold air. Her body stiffened and her speed suddenly decreased. However, she had awakened the origin divine power factor. She circulated her divine power and still blocked the attack of the cold air. Buzz! The giant centipede had forced Lu Ming to retreat with one attack. When it saw the beautiful woman, it immediately let out a screech. Its body bounced and it charged at the beautiful woman again. Get lost. The absolute beauty was very domineering. Sword light burst out and cut the giant centipede's body. The giant centipede was powerful, it was a half-step divine king. With the armor it was wearing, it had a strong defense. However, it still couldn't withstand the attack from the beautiful woman. The sword light cut through the centipede's armor and left a deep wound. This crazy woman's strength is amazing. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. If such an attack landed on him, he would probably be cut in half. The giant centipede was injured and seemed to have fallen into a state of fury. It screamed crazily and made a sharp sound. It kept spewing out terrifying cold air towards the beautiful woman. The giant centipede only had eyes for the beautiful woman. It could not be bothered with Lu Ming. Wherever the cold air passed, even the cold nether energy floating in the air was frozen. It was clear how terrifying the cold air was. The absolute beauty had to concentrate on defending. At the same time, she slashed out sword lights towards the giant centipede. The two of them started fighting. How could Lu Ming miss such an opportunity? He executed the 9 heavenly Kunping technique to the extreme, transformed into a Kunping and left the place in a flash. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming had gone far away. I've finally gotten rid of this crazy woman. Who is this crazy woman? Did the Qin and Jin families send people to kill me, or did they collude with the Dark Ice clan to kill me? Lu Ming guessed in his heart. Not long after, Lu Ming was hundreds of thousands of miles deep into the land of the cold nether. The Hellfrost Qi here was getting thicker and thicker. Occasionally, Lu Ming would discover some living creatures. However, these living beings were all extremely terrifying. The weakest of them was a 9th-level heavenly god, while the majority of them were half-step divine kings. Wife, you're here, please continue reading on Oxful. Omicronum. This kind of living being was of the cold attribute and was like a fish in water in the chi of the cold underworld. Moreover, in such an environment this kind of creature's strength could be exerted to 120%, which was much stronger than the outside world. As for the others, if they did not control the divine-grade divine power of the cold attribute, their strength would be greatly reduced when they entered this place. No wonder it was called a forbidden area. It was indeed very dangerous for ordinary geniuses to enter. Boom. Lu Ming was flying when the mountains and the ground suddenly shook. Then Lu Ming saw an ice mountain flying over from a distance and crashing down on him. Lu Ming was shocked and dodged quickly. He retreated 100 miles in an instant to avoid the ice mountain. Boom. It was really an ice mountain with an energy level of 1,000 meters. It crashed heavily in front of Lu Ming and the ground shook continuously. And NBSP hoo-hoo. A whistling sound was heard in the air, and then a large black shadow was cast down from the sky. More icebergs came crashing toward Lu Ming. There was not only one but several of them in succession. What's going on? Lu Ming was speechless. He retreated and dodged continuously. However, the icebergs continued to smash down and finally, there was one that Lu Ming could not avoid. Moon slaying. Lu Ming held the spear with both hands and swung it down. Boom. The spear radiance struck the ice mountain, causing a violent boom. The ice mountain shattered and Lu Ming was sent flying by a terrifying force. After retreating 100 miles, his chi and blood were in turmoil. What a terrifying power. What is it? Lu Ming stared ahead. And NBSP he was maintaining his ancient god body so his strength was astonishing, but he had still almost been injured. At this moment, a roar came from the distance. Then a huge creature rushed over. That's... Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. This time it was not an iceberg but a giant ape that was charging at him. This giant ape was huge and was thousands of meters tall. It was even bigger than the ice mountain from before. Lu Ming knew that the giant ape was the one who threw the icebergs. Boom. The giant ape stepped on an ice mountain, causing it to explode. Ice shards flew in all directions and the ground shook violently. A ferocious aura gushed out and surged towards Lu Ming. A pair of huge eyes stared at Lu Ming, filled with killing intent. Roar. The giant ape bellowed in rage and stomped on the ground, blasting a huge pit in the ground. Its huge body pounced toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming had transformed into an ancient god and was more than 200 meters tall. However, in front of the giant ape he was not even an infant. A fist larger than a mountain came crashing toward Lu Ming, bringing with it a terrifying gust of wind. Retreat, retreat. Lu Ming did not dare to take it head-on and retreated rapidly. However, the opponent's fist force was too powerful. The air kept exploding and Lu Ming's speed was greatly affected. There was no other way. In the end, Lu Ming could only take it head-on. Star explosion. Lu Ming cast his strongest move. A huge spear ray burst out and stabbed at the giant ape. When the spear's radiance was about to approach the giant ape, it exploded with a loud bang. Boom. The force spread in all directions, but Lu Ming felt a terrifying force surging towards him. Lu Ming's body trembled and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Retreat. Lu Ming made use of this force to retreat rapidly. Coupled with the speed of the 9 heavenly Kunping technique, he retreated tens of thousands of miles in an instant. Then Lu Ming turned around and dashed backward rapidly. Roar. The giant ape roared angrily and chased after Lu Ming. This giant ape has such terrifying strength. I'm afraid that it has also awakened a power similar to the origin divine power factor in its body. Lu Ming pondered. The living beings now could be considered the descendants of the original gods. More or less, they all had a trace of the bloodline of the original gods. It was the same even for those wild beasts and divine beasts. Therefore, many dire beasts and vicious beasts would awaken powers similar to the origin divine power factor, which was very terrifying. It was obvious that this giant ape had awakened a similar power. Its abilities were very shocking. Lu Ming was no match for it at all. He was not its match even when he used the supernova and was injured in an instant. Lu Ming transformed into a Kunping and flew at high speed. However, the giant ape's speed was extremely shocking and it chased closely after Lu Ming. Very quickly a few minutes passed. Whoosh. Suddenly, Lu Ming saw a sword light coming at him at high speed. It's her. Lu Ming's gaze flickered. The owner of the sword gleam was the beautiful woman who had chased after Lu Ming previously. Seeing this woman, Lu Ming was not shocked. Instead, he was overjoyed. Without thinking, he immediately rushed toward the beautiful woman. At the next moment, the absolute beauty also saw Lu Ming. When she saw Lu Ming rushing toward her instead, she could not help but be stunned. She did not quite understand why Lu Ming suddenly rushed toward her. However, she immediately understood. It was because she saw the giant ape. She understood that Lu Ming wanted to use her to fight against the giant ape. However, was this possible? The beautiful woman's eyes were filled with cold light. She was about to make a move when she and the giant ape attacked from the front and back, killing Lu Ming. "Honey, it's great that you're here. Let's kill that giant ape together." Lu Ming shouted. "What? Wife?" The absolute beauty was stunned again. The next moment she reacted and screamed, "You shameless!" However, Lu Ming was already not far away from the absolute beauty. Roar! The giant ape roared. It stretched out a huge palm and grabbed at the ground. A huge ice mountain was conjured. With a wave of its hand, the huge ice mountain smashed towards Lu Ming, shrouding the beautiful woman within. "Honey, help!" Lu Ming shouted and dodged to the left and right, avoiding the iceberg. This was Lu Ming's plan. This giant ape had such a high cultivation level, so it must be very intelligent. It would definitely be able to understand what they were saying. Therefore, when Lu Ming called out, "Wife," the giant ape would definitely mistake the beautiful woman for Lu Ming's gang. Naturally, its attack would also envelop the beautiful woman. Obviously, Lu Ming's plan had succeeded. Being enveloped by the ice mountain, the absolute beauty could only fight back. A bright sword light burst out and cut the ice mountain in half. This crazy woman is really powerful, Lu Ming thought to himself. Just now he had experienced the terror of the giant ape. However, the absolute beauty had split the ice mountain with a single sword strike. Her strength was shocking. The giant ape's gaze also turned to the absolute beauty. The absolute beauty gave it a strong pressure, making it instinctively feel a trace of danger. Therefore, the giant ape roared and pounced on the beautiful woman, leaving Lu Ming behind. To it, Lu Ming was not dangerous. On the contrary, the beautiful woman was. Of course, it had to eliminate the danger first. The mountain-like fist was aimed at the beautiful woman and she could only counterattack. Buzz! The sound of the sword resounded through the 9 heavens as a glass-like sword light, over 10,000 meters long, slashed towards the giant ape. Boom! Boom! The two of them engaged in a great battle. The entire place was in chaos and raced to the ground. Supreme Cold Treasure, please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. Good lord, this strength is even stronger than the Night Demon King. Lu Ming was speechless as he watched the battle between the absolute beauty and the giant ape. Both the absolute beauty and the giant ape had yet to reach the Divine King realm, but their battle prowess was definitely at the Divine King realm. An ordinary one-stage Divine King like the Night Demon King was most likely not that powerful. This was a heaven's favorite who could fight across a large realm. Wife, help your husband block this beast first. Your husband will go and find someone to help. Naturally, Lu Ming would not miss such a good opportunity. After leaving behind those words, he disappeared in a flash. Despicable, shameless, you're courting death. The beautiful woman shouted angrily. She was so angry that she almost vomited blood. Her beautiful face was flushed red. She secretly swore that the next time she saw Lu Ming, she would definitely cut him into pieces to vent her hatred. At the thought that Lu Ming actually called her his wife, she gnashed her teeth in hatred. Could it be that this guy knows? Impossible. Even if I knew, I would still kill him. The absolute beauty gritted her teeth and focused on dealing with the giant ape in front of her. Lu Ming was running at full speed. It did not take long for him to transform into his human form. He had been using the ancient god body all this while, and it was very draining on him. After transforming into his human form, Lu Ming flew for a while and found a hidden ice cave. He flew in. After taking a closer look, he realized that there were no other living beings in the ice cave. Lu Ming moved a piece of ice and blocked the ice cave. Then he sat cross-legged and circulated the universe 1000 Dao scripture to recover. After a few days, Lu Ming's divine power and physical strength had recovered to their peak. It's a pity that Qiu can't come in here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in such a sorry state. Lu Ming sighed. No one below the God King level could enter Star Moon Ancient City. Qiu was a metallic life form, so it naturally couldn't enter either. Otherwise, with Qiu's strength, it could easily suppress existences like the absolute beauty and the giant ape. I must quickly find the treasure of Jihan and improve my strength. Lu Ming secretly gritted his teeth. During this period of time he was repeatedly hunted down, and he really had a stomach full of pent-up anger. He got up and left the ice cave. Lu Ming continued to venture deeper into the nether cold land. Lu Ming, the cold qi is extremely dense in the 8,000-mile area ahead. There might be a treasure of extreme cold. The voice of the quantity formula sounded. The quantity formula was extremely sensitive to energy fluctuations. Lu Ming asked the quantity formula to help him search for treasures with cold energy. 8,000 miles ahead. Lu Ming's eyes lit up and he flew forward. Not long after, an ice lake appeared in front of them. This ice lake wasn't big, but the cold air was shockingly dense. It was many times denser than other places. Lu Ming, the source of the cold qi is under the lake. However, I'm afraid that there's a creature guarding the lake. The quantity formula said. There's a living creature guarding it. What's its cultivation level? Lu Ming asked. I don't know about this. You can go down and find it yourself. The quantity formula said. Lu Ming was speechless. In the end he still decided to take a look. Since he had already come this far, it would be a pity if he didn't explore. With a plop, Lu Ming rushed into the ice lake. Not long after. The frozen lake churned violently, stirring up thousands of waves. A white python could be seen rolling in the middle. At the same time, rays of spear light burst out from the ice lake. They were extremely bright. A few moments passed. Buzz. A figure dashed out of the frozen lake. It was Lu Ming. After Lu Ming rushed out, he cast the 9 Heavenly Kun Ping technique and transformed into a 9 Heavenly Kun Ping, leaving the place at great speed. A 1,000-meter-long python rushed out of the ice lake. It looked up to the sky and roared, but it didn't pursue in the end. It swam around the ice lake for a while before returning to the lake. 10,000 miles away from the frozen lake, Lu Ming sat on an ice seal. He opened his palm and there was a crystal-like stone the size of a dragon's eye on it. It exuded a shocking cold air. This was the treasure that Lu Ming had brought out from the ice lake. Old Liang, how is this ice jade crystal? How much energy can it help you refine from the star core? Lu Ming asked in anticipation. Not much. The quantity formula only had 2 words. Not much. Lu Ming was a little disappointed. Although this ice jade crystal is a treasure of the extreme cold attribute, it's still not as good as the ice jade heart or the ball of cold liquid you obtained before. It's only stronger than the cold moonstone and it's too small. The quantity formula explained. It seems that I have to continue looking for it. Forget it, you can absorb this ice jade crystal first. I will continue to look for other cold attribute treasures, Lu Ming said. He then let the quantity formula absorb the ice jade crystal. For the next half a month, Lu Ming went around the cold nether forbidden grounds in search of supreme cold treasures. He found a total of 3, but unfortunately they weren't of particularly high level. They were all treasures of the same level as the ice jade crystal, but it was better than nothing. One day Lu Ming was walking in an ice valley. The quantity formula told him that the energy fluctuation of the cold air in this ice valley was also very abnormal and very dense. After moving forward for a while there was nothing unusual. Lu Ming was rather surprised that there were no living creatures guarding this place. This is a 9-petaled ice lotus. Suddenly Lu Ming's eyes lit up. At the end of the ice valley, a lotus flower grew on a wall. It was crystal clear like jade and emitted a strong chill. This was the first time Lu Ming had seen a plant in the cold nether forbidden grounds. Moreover, it was a cold attribute divine medicine. The 9-petaled ice lotus had a total of 9 petals, which was very different from other lotus flowers. However, Lu Ming had once read in an ancient book that the 9-petaled ice lotus was the best among the cold attribute divine herbs. Lu Ming was overjoyed. This 9-petaled ice lotus was definitely a treasure of the cold attribute that was better than the ice jade crystal. After absorbing it with the quantity formula, it would definitely help him refine a lot of energy from the star core. Lu Ming's figure flashed as he stepped forward. He used his divine power to form a large hand and picked the 9-petaled ice lotus. And NBSP, but at this moment, several figures appeared above the ice valley. There were a total of 5 young people, both men and women, all wearing white robes. As soon as they appeared, their eyes fell on the 9-petaled ice lotus in Lu Ming's hand. Kid, hand over the 9-petaled ice lotus. One of the young men shouted coldly, and an icy cold aura enveloped Lu Ming. I found it first, so why should I hand it over to you? Lu Ming said indifferently. You discovered it first. What a joke. We discovered this 9-petaled ice lotus a long time ago. Previously there were dire beasts guarding this place and we lured them away. That's how you managed to get your way. Do you understand? A young man with snow-white hair said coldly. Attract the desolate beasts? Lu Ming was stunned. However, the next moment he knew that the other party was lying. The other party's reason did not seem to have any problems, but upon careful thought, it was full of loopholes. There were 5 people on the other side. Was there a need for 5 people to act together to attract the dire beasts? You are not qualified to kill him. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. There were a total of 5 people on the other side. There was no need for all 5 of them to work together to attract the desolate beasts. As long as a few of them attracted the desolate beasts, the other few could easily pick the 9-petal ice lotus. Who would be so foolish to attract the dire beasts together and leave the treasures here? Therefore Lu Ming knew that the other party was lying after some thought. Sneering coldly, Lu Ming kept the 9-petaled ice lotus in his storage ring. Kid, it seems like you're not going to hand it over? The white-haired youth's eyes were cold, and the coldness on his body became stronger and stronger. The other party clearly also cultivated cold attribute divine grade divine power, so he was not afraid of the cold nether energy here. Since I've already obtained it, how can I hand it over? Lu Ming smiled faintly. Very good, very good. The white-haired youth nodded. Lu Ming, your talent is not bad. You've crossed the heavenly gates. However, your cultivation is only at the 4th level celestial deity realm. Do you think you can swallow the 9-petal ice lotus in front of us with such a cultivation? After saying that, the white-haired young man's aura completely bloomed. Half-step divine king. The white-haired young man was a half-step divine king. However, Lu Ming could tell at a glance that the other party had not awakened the divine power factor. At the same time, the rest of them moved in a flash and surrounded Lu Ming, each of them exuding a powerful aura. Another half-step divine king. The other 3 were also 9th-level celestial deity existences. However, no one had awakened the origin divine power factor. The origin divine power factor was not that easy to awaken. There were so many prodigies below the divine king realm in the Star Battalion, but only 4 of them had passed the heavenly gate. Including the beautiful lady, there were only 5 of them. Naturally, he wouldn't encounter a person who had awakened the origin divine power factor. Lu Ming narrowed his eyes slightly. He was not afraid. As long as he had not awakened the divine power factor, Lu Ming was not afraid of even a half-step divine king. Even if he could not defeat them, he could still escape. Lu Ming, I've given you a chance just now, but you didn't cherish it. Now not only will you hand over the 9-petaled ice lotus, but you'll also have to hand over everything else you have. Also, open up your Dantian and Sea of Consciousness. Let us search. We can consider sparing your life. The white-haired youth spoke again, his eyes flashing with greed. He thought of how Lu Ming was able to cross the heavenly gates with just a 4th-level celestial deity. He must have had a great opportunity on him. Now not only did he want the 9-petaled ice lotus, but he also wanted the opportunity on Lu Ming. He even had an even more vicious plan in mind. He planned to wait for Lu Ming to hand over all the treasures before crippling his cultivation and imprisoning him. He would then slowly dig out all the secrets on Lu Ming. At the thought of being able to obtain Lu Ming's secret and rise to the top, his heart burned with passion. It seems that you are quite ambitious. Lu Ming sneered coldly and was ready to find an opening to escape. However, at this moment Lu Ming's expression changed and he looked at the sky. Whoosh! In the sky, a sword light appeared, and then the figure of a beautiful woman appeared. Lu Ming's face turned bitter. If this wasn't that absolute beauty, who could it be? Enemies really meet on a narrow road, meeting again. Lu Ming's mouth was full of bitterness. He had just been surrounded by the white-haired young man and the rest, and now there was a beautiful woman. This situation was not good for Lu Ming. He was confident that he could get rid of the white-haired young man and the others, but with the addition of the absolute beauty, he had no way to escape. We're in trouble. Lu Ming mumbled. Of course he would not give up. His mind whirred as he tried to find a way to escape. What a beautiful woman. When the white-haired youth and the others saw the beautiful woman, they couldn't help but be stunned. You guys get lost. The absolute Bowtie's gaze swept across the white-haired young man and the others as she coldly shouted. His words made the white-haired young man and the others' faces turn ugly. It seems that you and this kid are in cahoots. Little girl, I'm afraid that you alone won't be enough to save him. The white-haired youth sneered. Who's going to save him? I'm going to kill him. The absolute beauty said coldly. Kill him. This time the white-haired youth and the others were stunned again. They initially thought that the absolute beauty was here to save Lu Ming. They did not expect that she was here to kill him. Miss, you're here to kill him? Haha, it seems like we're on the same side. This brat stole our treasure, so we have to kill him too. Why don't I kill this brat on your behalf? I don't want him to dirty your hands. The white-haired youth laughed. The moment he heard that the absolute beauty was also here to kill Lu Ming, the white-haired young man immediately changed his attitude. He looked as if he wanted to get closer to the absolute beauty. If he wants to die, he can only die in my hands. Are you not qualified to kill him? However, the absolute beauty clearly didn't appreciate it and continued to speak coldly. Lu Ming was also stunned. He couldn't figure out the tricks of this beautiful woman at all. Since she wanted to kill Lu Ming, what was the difference between her killing him and the others killing him? Why must Lu Ming die in her hands? At this moment, even Lu Ming could not help but suspect that he had really drunk too much and done something to let the lady down. However, he had no impression of it at all. He didn't feel anything at all. If it was true, he would have suffered a great loss. The white-haired youth and company were also dazed. They didn't understand what the absolute beauty meant. It seems that you want to save him. The white-haired youth said coldly. He guessed that the absolute beauty wanted to save Lu Ming and deliberately said that she wanted to kill him to deceive them. Get lost. The absolute beauty shouted coldly. If you're really in cahoots, then I'll take you down as well. The white-haired young man's face darkened, and a powerful aura enveloped the beautiful woman. Bang! Then the white-haired young man took a step forward and stretched out his palm. A huge palm formed. This palm was made of ice and was filled with a terrible chill. It grabbed at the beautiful woman. You're overestimating yourself. And Mbisp, the absolute Bowtie's eyes turned cold, and she exuded an ancient aura. Whoosh! Then the absolute beauty waved her hand, and a sword light suddenly appeared, slashing toward the white-haired young man. With a poof, the big hand formed by the white-haired young man was directly split in half. The sword light did not stop and continued to cut towards the white-haired young man. Origin Divine Power Factor. You've awakened the Origin Divine Power Factor. The white-haired young man roared in fear and retreated. At the same time, a shield flew out from his forehead. Buzz! The sword light struck the shield, causing sparks to fly. The shield was sent flying and a deep crack appeared on it. The white-haired youth's face was deathly pale. This was a 9th-level upper-grade defensive divine artifact, yet it was directly broken through by the other party's sword. The rest of the young men also looked horrified. They could not help but retreat to keep a distance from the beautiful woman. The beautiful woman took a step forward and her sword soared into the sky. Wait a minute, it's a misunderstanding, it's all a misunderstanding. The white-haired youth shouted in fear. It's because you have a wife. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. The white-haired youth screamed in fear and retreated. Still not getting lost. The absolute beauty shouted coldly. She didn't attack immediately, but her aura became stronger. All right, let's go. The white-haired youth said. Although he was extremely unhappy, he didn't dare to fight the absolute beauty, even though there were 5 of them and he was a half-step divine king. As half-step divine kings, there was a huge difference between those who had awakened the Origin Divine Power Factor and those who had. Even if the 5 of them worked together, they would not be a match for the absolute beauty. Therefore, even though he was furious, he could only grit his teeth and avoid it. Wait a moment. At this moment, Lu Ming called out to the white-haired young man and the rest. What are you doing? The white-haired young man looked at Lu Ming. Brothers, don't leave. Help me deal with this crazy woman. As long as you help me, I'll give you all the treasures I have. Lu Ming smiled. All the treasures? The white-haired young man and the others were stunned for a moment, and a trace of fire flashed in their eyes. They were indeed tempted by the treasures on Lu Ming. However, when their gazes fell on the absolute beauty, they hesitated. Dealing with the absolute beauty would be life-threatening. The white-haired youth's eyes turned and he finally decided to give up. Although the treasure was important, how could it be more important than his own life? Therefore, the white-haired young man decided to refuse. However, the absolute beauty didn't give him the chance. If you still want to join forces against me, then I'll kill you all as well. Die. The beautiful woman shouted coldly. She brandished her sword, shooting out beams of sword light. The sword light enveloped Lu Ming, the white-haired young man, and the others. What are you doing? Damn it, you crazy woman! The white-haired young man roared. He opened his mouth and let out a long roar. His body expanded rapidly and actually turned into a huge white lion. This was the divine beast, the snow lion. Not only him but the other young men also transformed into snow lions. It turned out that the white-haired young man and the others were not humans, but the family of the frost lion, a divine beast. They transformed into their true forms and unleashed their full strength. They opened their mouths and roared, sending out waves of icy air currents that attacked the absolute beauty. The white-haired young man was furious. He had planned to retreat, but the absolute beauty suddenly attacked him. He could only defend with all his strength. Boom. Boom. The area was constantly exploding and the force was overflowing. This is good opportunity. Lu Ming's eyes lit up as he transformed into his ancient god body. Star explosion. Lu Ming thrust his spear forward. A ray of spear light rushed toward the beautiful woman and exploded, colliding with the beautiful woman's sword light in a terrifying manner. With the help of this force, Lu Ming's body retreated rapidly. He then cast the 9 heavenly Kun Ping technique and charged forward madly. This woman's brain is indeed not very good. The moment he rushed out, such a thought flashed across Lu Ming's mind. In fact, through the previous few times, Lu Ming realized that although the absolute beauty was powerful and had amazing talents, she did not have many schemes and thoughts. To put it bluntly, it was pure. She was pure. Not only pure but also proud. That was why she fell for their tricks time and time again. Just now, Lu Ming had only pretended to invite the white-haired young man and the rest to attack together. The absolute beauty attacked them without thinking. The main reason was that he was simple-minded and thought that the white-haired youth and the others would really attack. The other reason was her pride. She was very confident in her own strength and believed that she could deal with the white-haired young man and the others. Lu Ming had seized the opportunity. Pervert, die. Seeing that Lu Ming had run away again, the absolute beauty was furious. She abandoned the white-haired young man and the others and chased after Lu Ming. One chasing and one escaping, they disappeared in the blink of an eye, leaving the white-haired young man and the others looking at each other. Who is this crazy woman? Why haven't I seen him before? To think that there's such a beautiful and talented person in the Universal Camp. Looks like I'll have to pay more attention to her in the future. There must be a secret on Lu Ming. Otherwise, the Jin and Qin families wouldn't want to kill him. I hope that he's lucky and doesn't die in the hands of that woman. He won't be so lucky the next time he meets us. The white-haired youth and the others chatted for a while before leaving. Lu Ming circulated the 9 heavenly Kun Ping technique to the extreme. His divine power boiled and condensed into a Kun Ping. The Kun Ping's wings flapped rapidly. With every flap, Lu Ming flew hundreds of miles away. However, the absolute beauty was even faster. She transformed into a sword light and streaked through the air. Her speed was even faster than Lu Ming's. This was also due to the presence of the cold nether energy. Otherwise, the absolute bowtie's speed would be even more astonishing and Lu Ming would not be able to escape. Lu Ming, don't even think about using the dire beast to get rid of me this time. I won't be fooled again. The absolute beauty shouted. At the thought of how Lu Ming had escaped time and time again, she was very upset and her killing intent grew stronger. Beauty, beauty, why do you have to chase me? I have a wife. Lu Ming shouted. It's because you have a wife you deserve to die even more. The absolute beauty said coldly. Lu Ming almost vomited blood. He staggered and almost fell. What do you mean you deserve to die more because you have a wife? Why did her words sound like she was jealous? However, Lu Ming had never seen this woman before. Beauty, are you secretly in love with me but you found out that I have a wife so you can't have me so you want to kill me? You can't have such a thought, it's too perverted. Lu Ming shouted. Nonsense, who likes you? Don't think too much. The absolute bowtie's expression turned even colder. Then why do you still want to chase me? Why do you have to kill me? Lu Ming was really speechless. I'm going to kill you. Why do I have so many reasons? Die. The absolute beauty shouted and a sword light slashed out. Lu Ming dodged it by a hair's breadth and was almost seriously injured. This woman really wanted to kill him. He wasn't just saying it. He didn't show any mercy. Lu Ming was completely confused now. Even with his intelligence, he could not guess the purpose of the beautiful woman. If she had been sent by the Jin and Qin families, or by forces that had colluded with the Dark Ice clan, the beautiful woman would not have saved Lu Ming when the white-haired young man and the others wanted to kill him. What was the difference between her killing herself and being killed? However, the absolute beauty wanted to chase away the white-haired young man and the rest and kill Lu Ming with her own hands. No matter how she looked at it, she looked like a resentful wife who had been let down. Beauty, did you get the wrong person? In the end, Lu Ming shouted helplessly. I won't be mistaken. Your name is Lu Ming and you came from the Qin Heaven Star System. The person I want to kill is you. The absolute beauty said coldly. Lu Ming was speechless. He could only fly at full speed. A supreme cold treasure? Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. Suddenly, Lu Ming's body trembled slightly. He circulated his divine energy and the ninth heaven Kunping that he had condensed became more solid. At this critical moment, the 9 heavenly Kunping technique actually broke through and reached the 8th level. Originally, Lu Ming had cultivated the incomplete 9 heavenly Kunping technique to the peak of the 7th stage. Later on, he obtained the complete version of the 9 heavenly Kunping technique. After cultivating it for a period of time, he was able to achieve a breakthrough naturally under the high concentration he had. The moment he broke through to the 8th level of the 9 heavenly Kunping technique, Lu Ming's speed had increased greatly. The Kunping flapped its wings and Lu Ming's speed increased rapidly, covering 1,000 miles in an instant. In an instant, Lu Ming's speed was not any slower than the absolute beauty. I've broken through. The absolute Bowtie's eyes narrowed. Divine power surged wildly, turning into a beam of sword light. She moved forward like lightning, but she could not catch up with Lu Ming. The two of them maintained a certain distance. Lu Ming secretly heaved a sigh of relief. The two of them flew deeper and deeper into the dark frost-forbidden grounds. However, the absolute beauty continued to pursue Lu Ming. This crazy woman, what kind of deep hatred do I have with her? Being chased, Lu Ming was furious. He couldn't continue like this. Although he had the quantity formula, which had an endless supply of Shin power and could maintain it for a long time, if this continued, he wouldn't have time to find the cold treasures. He would be delayed. Lu Ming, there's an extremely strong fluctuation of cold energy ahead. Suddenly, the voice of the quantity formula sounded. The fluctuation of the ultimate cold energy? Lu Ming's eyes lit up and he continued flying. After flying for a while, the coldness in front of them became even more intense. The cold chi was pressing and the cold chi was like mist. In the distance, Lu Ming saw an underground crack. It was huge, hundreds of miles long and dozens of miles wide. The dense cold nether energy was coming from the underground crack. There it is. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Lu Ming thought of a plan that might be able to get rid of the beautiful woman. The frosty chi in the underground crack was so dense that it would be a good use to get rid of the beautiful woman. Buzz. Lu Ming rushed toward the underground crack. The underground crack was huge. Even though Lu Ming had transformed into an ancient god, he was still very small and he could easily rush in. The absolute Bowtie's expression changed slightly when she saw Lu Ming rushing into the underground crack. Don't even think about escaping. In the end, the absolute beauty gritted her teeth and also rushed in. The underground crack was huge. The deeper it went, the wider it became. However, the cold air also became stronger. Very soon, Lu Ming arrived at the bottom. The cold air here was already very shocking. Lu Ming circulated the divine power of the moon with all his might. With the protection of the ice chains, he was able to block the attack of the cold air. Buzz. The sound of a sword rang out as a sword light rapidly approached from above. This woman really won't let me off. Lu Ming's face darkened and he rushed forward. The ground beneath the crack was like a large canyon. Lu Ming, yes, it's right in front. I can feel an incomparably dense cold chi. There must be some cold treasures here. It can even refine the energy of many stars, cores. The quantity formula kept tempting Lu Ming. Lu Ming ran at a high speed and soon he reached the end. At the end there was a huge black cave from which cold nether energy was constantly flowing out. Lu Ming rushed in without any hesitation. Not long after, the beautiful woman followed suit. There was a passage in the cave. Lu Ming ran for thousands of miles and his eyes suddenly opened up. This was a huge underground space. The surrounding walls were embedded with snow-white gemstones that constantly emitted a chill. At a glance, there were no less than a few hundred of them, emitting a hazy glow. Could these be supreme cold treasures? No, the quality of these gemstones is much worse. Lu Ming frowned. Although these gemstones exuded extreme coldness, their quality was not high. They were probably much worse than the cold jade stone. However, if he sold it to those who cultivated cold attribution power, it should be worth a lot of Xian crystals. However, Lu Ming was a little disappointed. This was not what he wanted. That's not right. I can feel that there's an extremely high-quality treasure of extreme cold in this area. There's no mistake. Let me sense it. The quantity formula shouted. Whoosh. At this moment, a sword light flashed and the absolute beauty chased in. This crazy woman is really here. Lu Ming's expression was somewhat gloomy. However, the coldness here was very strong. The beautiful woman had to set up layers of divine power around her body to block the cold from the outside world. Lu Ming died. As soon as the absolute beauty saw Lu Ming, she was about to charge at him. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the underground space suddenly started to shake. The surrounding walls started to make rumbling sounds. Bang. Suddenly, the wall on one side burst open and stone and ice flew everywhere. Then a huge head popped out. Lu Ming was shocked. He did not expect a head to stick out from the wall. This head was not the head of an animal. It was more like a plant. It was like a tree stump, white and crystal clear, covered with roots. Furthermore, it was extremely huge, at least a few thousand meters in length and width. A cold attribute treasure. Yes, there's a cold attribute treasure in the middle of its brows. The quantity formula shouted. Lu Ming took a closer look. Indeed, there was a silver-white gem embedded on the stump-like head. A terrifying chill was exuded from the silver-white gem. What a shocking coldness. It's no worse than the ice jade cold heart of the Ice Soul clan. Lu Ming's eyes lit up and his heart was burning. If he could obtain this gem and pass it to the quantity formula, he could use it to neutralize the energy in the core of the star. It would definitely be able to quickly refine some energy for Lu Ming's breakthrough. He wanted to get it. Lu Ming thought to himself. Roar. After the stump-like head appeared, it roared and opened its mouth. In the void, hundreds of icicles were instantly condensed and then whizzed toward Lu Ming and the beautiful woman. Break the air, break the air. Lu Ming kept casting the air-piercing move. The spear's gleam burst out one after another to block the attack of the ice thorns. Clang, clang. A series of collision sounds rang out. Lu Ming managed to block the icicles, but his body shook violently and he could not help but retreat. What shocking strength! Lu Ming's eyes were a little solemn. On the other side, the beautiful woman waved her sword and easily blocked the attack of the ice thorns. Roar. Seeing that it could not finish off Lu Ming and the beautiful woman with one move, the tree stump head seemed to be furious. It opened its mouth and spewed out white mist, which gushed toward Lu Ming and the beautiful woman. This mist was like an upgraded version of the frost nether chi and it was filled with a terrifying chill. Wherever the mist passed, ice crystals would appear in the air. It was extremely terrifying. The terrifying vines. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicronum. The cold air that was spurted out from the stump-like head was extremely terrifying. Even Lu Ming shivered as if his body was about to be frozen. The beautiful woman had to lay down more than 10 layers of divine power around her body to block the cold. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment the ground exploded. A few vines suddenly rushed out from under Lu Ming and the beautiful woman's feet, heading toward them. There were a total of 4 vines. 2 of them were used to deal with Lu Ming, while the other 2 were used to deal with the beautiful woman. The vine was snow-white and crystal clear like jade, but it was filled with a terrifying chill. And NBSP hoo-hoo. The vines whipped in the air, making a whistling sound as they lashed at Lu Ming like a soft whip. Moon slaying. Lu Ming held the spear with both hands and slashed continuously. Boom, boom. The long spear struck the vine, causing a violent tremor. Then Lu Ming's body shook violently and he retreated continuously. The qi and blood in his body churned and he almost vomited blood. The surface of his body was covered in a layer of ice crystals, almost freezing his body. He had to continuously channel his divine power to dissolve the layer of ice. So that tree stump-like head is a vine head, but its strength is so terrifying. Lu Ming's expression was very grave. At this moment he could tell that the huge head that had appeared earlier was the vine's head. The vine's strength was extremely shocking. It was definitely at the Divine King realm and was even stronger than the Night Demon Lord. Buzz. Buzz. On the other side, the beautiful woman's sword light continued to burst forth, cutting 2 vines and sending them flying. Roar. Roar. The vine roared and the 4 vines began to dance wildly. Each vine could change its size freely. Like a long snake, it lashed out or wrapped around the 2 of them. However, this time only one of the 2 vines that were originally attacking Lu Ming remained. The other one attacked the beautiful woman. It was obvious that the absolute beauty posed a greater threat to it, so the vine used more power to deal with the absolute beauty. Lu Ming, if you want to kill this vine and get the treasure of absolute frost, you have to destroy its head. Otherwise you can't kill it by just attacking the vine. The quantity formula shouted. Understood. Lu Ming responded. He waved his long spear and exchanged a few more moves with the vines. Suddenly, Lu Ming's body moved and he executed the 9 Heavenly Kun Ping technique to its maximum. With a flash, he dodged the vine's attack and charged toward the vine's head. In an instant, Lu Ming was not far from the vine's head. And NBSP hoo-hoo. The vine opened its mouth wide and spat out a thick mist that gushed toward Lu Ming. The temperature of the mist was shockingly low. Lu Ming was enveloped in it and he felt that his body was about to freeze. Not only his body but his soul was also about to be frozen. Suddenly the 9th ice chain glowed. A layer of silver-white light enveloped Lu Ming and blocked the cold air outside. Then Lu Ming's body shook and the ice crystals on the surface of his body shattered. Lu Ming continued to attack the vine's head. Seeing that Lu Ming was about to get close to the vine's head, he was about to use the supernova to kill the vine completely. However, at this moment the rocks around the vine's head exploded and 5 vines rushed out. Each of the 5 vines was crystal clear and exuded a terrifying chill. They lashed out or wrapped around Lu Ming. Not good. Lu Ming's pupils contracted rapidly. It turned out that this vine actually had so many vines. It was simply like an octopus. Previously he had only used 4 vines to attack Lu Ming and the rest. The other 5 vines were hidden near his head to protect it. Once someone got close, the 5 vines could launch a lightning attack. At that moment, Lu Ming could only try his best to resist. Roar. Roar. A dragon's roar was heard. Lu Ming circulated the divine dragon materialization art. 7 divine dragon manifestations appeared and charged toward a vine. At the same time he brandished his spear and attacked a few vines. Boom. Boom. A series of explosions rang out. The 7 9-clawed divine dragons were instantly destroyed. Lu Ming's body shook violently. His arms were about to explode as he spat out a mouthful of blood. However, out of the 5 vines, Lu Ming could only block 3 of them. There was nothing he could do about the remaining 2. The remaining 2 sets of canes wrapped around Lu Ming. A terrifying chill enveloped Lu Ming's entire body, and he was immediately covered in a layer of ice. Break, break, break. Lu Ming roared. The divine power in his body erupted and he struggled madly trying to break the vines. However, the vine was extremely tough. Lu Ming exerted all his strength, but not only did it not break, it tightened even more. The green scales on Lu Ming's body were about to break. Then the vine pulled Lu Ming and stuffed him into its mouth. It was planning to eat him. This is troublesome. There was a trace of panic in Lu Ming's eyes. The current situation was not good. His entire body was entangled and almost frozen. He had no way to resist. Although he had cultivated the moon divine power, his cultivation was still weak. He could not stop the cold from invading. Brat, don't be afraid. Entering its mouth is our chance. We might be able to kill it. At this moment the measure character said. Enter its mouth and kill it? How? The coldness in this guy's mouth is extremely terrifying. I'm afraid it'll be frozen to death in an instant if I go in. Lu Ming said. Frozen to death? How is that possible? With this old lady here, how could I let you freeze to death? The unhappy voice of the quantity formula sounded. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. That's right, the chill was actually a type of energy. The quantity formula was known as the source of all energy. It could devour any kind of energy. In that case, it could also devour coldness. As long as the quantity formula was used on Lu Ming's surface and devoured the coldness on his pale face, he would not have to be afraid of that kind of coldness. Boy, it seems that you have thought it through. The reason why I haven't made a move now is that I'm afraid of alerting the snake and making this vine hesitate. If that's the case, it'll really be difficult to kill. The quantity formula said. Alright, then let's give it a shot. There was a hint of ruthlessness in Lu Ming's eyes. He planned to let himself be swallowed by the vine before he launched a lightning-fast attack. But at this moment something changed. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Streams of sword chi shot out and slashed at the vines that were wrapped around Lu Ming, causing sparks to fly. It was the absolute beauty. She had escaped from the 3 vines and was charging over. Only I can kill Lu Ming. No one else is qualified to kill him, including you, old vine. Die. The absolute beauty shouted. Sword chi filled the air, and her body was covered by a transparent sword light. Her aura was extremely shocking. Divine sword art. The absolute beauty waved her hand and a few hundred sword lights slashed at the vines that wrapped around Lu Ming. However, the vines were shockingly hard and sturdy. Even with the absolute Bowtie's abilities, she could not cut them and could only leave a few white marks on them. A woman's heart is like a needle in the ocean. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. The absolute Bowtie's actions had angered the vines. The other vines flew over together, whistling through the air as they charged towards the absolute beauty. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. With a wave of her hand, the beautiful woman sent out beams of sword light that were as solid as glass. They slashed at the vines and sent them flying. The absolute beauty was very powerful. If they were in the outside world, her strength would not be weaker than the vine. But here she was affected by the cold nether energy and couldn't use her full strength. You crazy woman, what are you doing? Who needs your help? Lu Ming roared. He was speechless. This crazy woman had wanted to kill him before, but now she wanted to save him. He really couldn't figure out what this woman was thinking. A woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the ocean. This woman was the embodiment of it. I've said it before, even if you die, you can only die in my hands. The absolute beauty shouted coldly. She waved her sword and beams of sword light slashed at the vines wrapped around Lu Ming's body. She wanted to cut the vines apart and save Lu Ming. However, the vines were tough and could not be split open. Woman, are you crazy? I don't want you to save me. Get lost. Lu Ming roared. This woman's actions would ruin his plans. His plan was to rush into the vine's mouth and kill it. If he was rescued, his plan would not be able to proceed. Lu Ming really wanted to curse. However, the absolute Bowtie's face darkened. She could not be bothered with Lu Ming and continued to attack. However, she could not break the vines in the end. Lu Ming was getting closer and closer to the vines. He was almost in her mouth. At this moment, a hint of ruthlessness flashed in the absolute Bowtie's eyes. She suddenly abandoned Lu Ming and rushed toward the head of the vine. She also understood that the only way to save Lu Ming was to attack the vine's head or even kill it. Godly sword art, kill. Die. The beautiful woman shouted and slashed at the vine's head. A crystal sword light slashed at the vine. The vine waved a few vines in front of it to block the sword light, but the vines were also swept away. Kill. The absolute beauty continued to approach the vine's head. Roar. The vine gate roared and struggled. Its head broke free from the wall. Boom, boom, boom. The huge body of the vine was completely revealed. It had a huge head and 9 thick vines around its body, making it look like an octopus. The vine had completely left the wall and its body was more agile. With a flash, it dodged the attack of the absolute beauty. At the same time, it waved the vine and attacked the absolute beauty. The absolute Bowtie's body was covered in a transparent sword light. 2 vines whipped the sword light and the sword light trembled. The absolute Bowtie's body also trembled. However, she still had a determined and stubborn look on her face as she continued to charge toward the vine's head. Man and sword as one, kill. In the end, the absolute beauty shouted. She turned into a sword light and rushed toward the vine's head, ignoring her own defense. Bang, bang, bang. The vines waved a few of them and whipped at the beautiful woman. They whipped the sword light around her, causing it to shake violently. The beautiful woman's body trembled and blood seeped out of the corner of her mouth. However, she didn't care about that. She gritted her teeth and continued to rush toward the vine's head. This crazy woman doesn't even care about her own safety. Lu Ming was speechless. At this moment he felt a slight warmth in his heart. After all, this woman was trying to save him. Whoosh, And NBSP, the sword light that the beautiful woman had transformed into, was extremely powerful and emitted shocking power. It charged at the vine head as if it was going to split it in half. The vine's eyes finally revealed a trace of panic. It roared and the vines that were wrapped around Lu Ming loosened. It ignored Lu Ming and whipped the beautiful woman. Bang, bang, bang. The 9 vines continued to lash at the absolute beauty. The absolute bowtie's protective sword light finally could not withstand it and was shattered. At the same time, the gem on the vine's head that was emitting extreme coldness glowed. A ray of light rushed out and rushed toward the absolute beauty. This ray of light was shockingly fast and hit the absolute beauty in an instant. The beautiful woman's body trembled and flew back. However, as she flew back, a sword light flew out of her hand and cut the vine's head. However, as the absolute beauty was sent flying, the sword light was also slightly off course, and it cut one of the vine's eyes, leaving a deep wound. Roar, roar. The vines howled madly and the 9 vines danced wildly. Lu Ming dodged in a hurry, and one of the vines whipped the beautiful woman who was flying backward. The beautiful woman was sent flying and crashed into the wall on the side before falling to the ground. What was even more shocking was that a layer of ice crystals quickly appeared on the beautiful woman's body, trying to freeze her. Let's go quickly. Hurry up and leave this place. The beautiful woman did not die. She glared at Lu Ming and shouted. After she finished speaking, she spat out a few more mouthfuls of blood. This crazy woman. Lu Ming was really confused. Previously, this woman was bent on killing Lu Ming. Now she was willing to risk being severely injured to save Lu Ming. After being injured, she even told Lu Ming to leave quickly. This change was too fast. However, Lu Ming did not wish to leave now. The vines were injured and it was a good opportunity to kill them. Lu Ming's figure flashed and he continued to attack the vines. Roar. The vine roared and waved, lashing at Lu Ming. Lu Ming's body shrank and returned to his human form. He then executed the 9 heavenly Kuan Ping technique to its maximum and dodged continuously. With his body shrunk, he became more agile and dodged more easily. Coupled with the 8th level of the 9 heavenly Kuan Ping technique, Lu Ming dodged 9 attacks from the vines in a row and rushed towards the head of the vine. When Lu Ming was near the vine's head, the gem on its head glowed again. A white beam of light rushed toward Lu Ming. This was the beam of light that had attacked the beautiful woman earlier. It was shockingly fast and it also had a terrifying chill. Lu Ming wanted to hide but he could not. The absolute beauty didn't dodge it either. The next moment, the white beam of light attacked Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming felt a bone-chilling cold burst out, wanting to freeze him completely. It was not just his physical body but also his soul. Cold. It was extremely cold. Lu Ming's thoughts seemed to be frozen. This was an extremely terrifying thing. Fortunately, Lu Ming had the measure formula. In his sea of consciousness, the measure formula glowed. A devouring force enveloped Lu Ming's entire body. Immediately, the bone-chilling cold was completely devoured by the measure formula. Lu Ming regained his freedom in an instant. Buzz. Lu Ming increased his speed and in a flash he was in the mouth of the vine. Lu Ming. Seeing Lu Ming rush into the mouth of the vine, the absolute bowtie's eyes revealed a trace of complicated feelings. You want to marry me? Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. I didn't expect that he and I would end up dying in this place together. Is this really fate? The absolute beauty murmured, her eyes somewhat complicated. At this moment, the layer of ice covering her body was even thicker. Her eyes were a little dazed and her vitality was getting weaker and weaker. The vine's head was huge. Lu Ming rushed into its mouth and realized that it was empty inside. Boom. Lu Ming released a powerful aura and wanted to kill the vine. However, from all directions, endless cold air enveloped Lu Ming, trying to freeze him to death. This kind of cold chi was extremely terrifying. It was condensed by the gem on the vine's head. If it were anyone else, even if they had the cultivation of the absolute beauty, they would probably be frozen to death. However, Lu Ming had the measure formula. The measure formula glowed and a mysterious energy covered Lu Ming's body. The terrifying cold air would be devoured and absorbed by the measure formula as soon as it got close to Lu Ming. Lu Ming was not affected at all. Lu Ming, wait a minute. It's useless for you to attack like this. It's hard to kill it completely without hitting its core. The quantity formula said. Where is the core of this vine? Lu Ming asked. This vine is not an ordinary plant. It is born from extreme cold qi, so it must have a core. I can sense it. Move forward. The quantity formula said. The vine's head was a few thousand meters long and wide. It was very large. Lu Ming flew a few hundred meters and saw that there were many fine vines above it. They were wrapped around a crystal core the size of a human head and were connected to each other. That's the core of the vine. As long as you break it, the vine will die. The quantity formula said. All right. Without any hesitation, Lu Ming was about to launch an attack. At this moment, the vine seemed to sense the impending danger. It frantically gathered the cold air and rushed towards Lu Ming like a storm. Even an ordinary first-tier divine king would be frozen to death by such cold air. However, Lu Ming was not affected at all. The cold qi was absorbed by the quantity formula and could be used to adjust the energy in the core of the star. Moon slaying. Lu Ming circulated his divine power and shot out. Boom. The spear radiance struck the crystal core, causing it to shake violently before exploding. The vine let out all kinds of ear-piercing cries, and its huge body scurried around. Finally, it fell to the ground with a loud bang, motionless and completely breathless. Die. He's dead? The absolute Bowtie's eyes revealed surprise. However, her current condition was getting worse and worse and she was about to fall into a coma. Bang. The vine's head exploded and Lu Ming appeared on top of it. He swept his gaze across the area and frowned when he saw the state of the absolute beauty. Should I save him or not? Lu Ming muttered. According to Lu Ming's character, he did not want to save her because this woman had been hunting him down. Since she was an enemy, Lu Ming would definitely not show mercy. However, this woman had saved him twice. Previously, he had faced the white-haired youth. Now he was facing the vines. No matter what the other party's purpose was, he had indeed saved him. Especially this time, in order to save him, he had sacrificed himself. Save him. Finally, Lu Ming muttered. He had his own principles. Since the other party had saved him, he had to return the favor. Lu Ming took a step forward and arrived beside the beautiful woman. This woman has been hit by that vine. The cold has already attacked her heart. In at most 10 minutes she will be completely frozen to death. The quantity formula said. Lu Ming nodded and sized up the beautiful woman carefully. To be honest, this absolute beauty was really beautiful. The clothes on her body were slightly torn by the vines, revealing a large area of her snow-white skin. In addition, he was motionless at the moment and looked like he was at the mercy of others. Lu Ming's heart wavered when he saw this. What are you trying to do? The beautiful woman said nervously, but her voice was weak. What do you think? Lu Ming smiled evilly. This smile made the woman's face turn even paler and filled her with despair. I'll ask you some questions. If you can answer them, I'll consider letting you go. Lu Ming said. What do you want to ask? Go ahead and ask. The absolute beauty said. Why do you want to kill me? And why did you save me? Lu Ming asked. This was what he was most curious about. The absolute beauty gritted her teeth, seemingly unwilling to say. You're not going to tell me, right? If you don't, then don't blame me. Lu Ming smiled evilly and touched the beautiful woman's face. The touch was extremely cold. A terrifying chill rushed toward Lu Ming's palm. Lu Ming circulated his divine power to dispel it. Stop, ill talk, the absolute beauty said in a panic. Lu Ming looked at the other party and did not say a word, waiting for him to continue. Because if I don't kill you, I'll marry you. If I don't want to marry you, I'll have to kill you. The absolute beauty said. What? Lu Ming was dumbfounded. He thought that he had heard wrongly. You want to marry me? Beauty, we've never met before. Why do you want to marry me? Lu Ming was really dumbfounded. Are you Prince Jingye's successor? The absolute beauty suddenly said. Lu Ming was so shocked that he almost jumped. How did the other party know that Lu Ming was the successor of Jingyu? He did not tell anyone about this. How did you know? Lu Ming's face darkened and his eyes were filled with killing intent. This matter could not be leaked out. Jingyu had been framed back then and he had a terrifying enemy in the Great Void Holy Dynasty. If the secret that he was Startled Feather's inheritor were to be revealed, he would most likely be killed. My father told me. The absolute beauty said. Your father. Lu Ming's heart turned cold. Could it be that he had been exposed? My father is in the Universal Camp. When you were fighting with the others in the Universal Camp, my father happened to pass by and he saw through you. The Absolute Beauty said. Your father. Lu Ming muttered, his mind spinning rapidly. Other than fighting with Frigid Eagle in the Universal Camp, he had not fought at all. Could it be that he had been recognized at that time? Who is your father? How did you recognize me? And what does this have to do with you marrying me? Lu Ming asked a few questions in succession. My father was Prince Jingyu's teacher back then. He followed Prince Jingyu for countless years, so it's only natural that my father would be able to recognize his successor. The Absolute Beauty said. Jingyu's teacher? Lu Ming was slightly stunned. This was really beyond his expectations. My father is proficient in the art of numerancy. He predicted that Prince Jingyu's successor was about to be born. Furthermore, he swore an oath that he would marry his daughter Mi to the successor of Prince Jingyu. My father believed that Prince Jingyu was framed. He wanted me to help Prince Jingyu's successor find out the truth. The Absolute Beauty continued. Oriole behind, please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. My father wanted me to marry you, but I didn't want to. So I had to kill you. The beautiful woman's voice turned cold. Lu Ming understood a lot after listening to the Absolute Bowtie's words. Her father was Jing Ye's teacher and he was well versed in the art of divination. He knew that Jing Ye's successor was about to be born, and thus he wanted his daughter to marry him. It was only when Lu Ming was fighting with Lung Ying at the Universal Camp that the beautiful lattice father saw him and recognized him. It was no wonder that the Absolute Beauty wanted to kill Lu Ming as soon as she saw him. Since you want to kill me, why did you save me? Lu Ming asked again. Father wants me to marry you and protect you. So you have to die. You can only die in my hands, not in the hands of anyone else. The Absolute Beauty said. As she said this, her voice became weaker and weaker. This logic is really weird. Lu Ming pursed his lips and was rather speechless. However, according to this logic, it made sense. If that was the case, he had to save this Absolute Beauty even more. It wasn't because of her beauty, but because she was the daughter of teacher Jingyu. From the looks of it, those who had followed Jingyu back then hadn't been completely suppressed. There were still people alive. In the future, if he were to help Jingyu reverse his verdict, he would still need the help of these people. Lu Ming squatted down and held the beautiful woman's hand. What are you doing? You said that you would let me go if I answered your question. You can't go back on your word. The Absolute Beauty panicked. She thought that Lu Ming was going to do something to her. What are you panicking for? I'm saving you. Lu Ming smiled faintly and channeled a stream of divine power into the beautiful woman's body. However, the moment the divine power entered the other's body, it was frozen by the terrifying cold air in the other's body. Her body has been completely frozen by the cold air, and it's almost frozen to her heart and brain. If these two places are frozen, she's going to die. The quantity formula said. Can you suck out the cold chi in her body? Lu Ming asked. Of course I can, but I can't expose myself. Put your palm on her palm and it'll draw the cold out of her body. But this way it will be slower. The quantity formula said. If the measure formula appeared directly and the devouring power enveloped the beautiful woman, it would be easy to absorb the cold chi in her body. However, if that were the case, the measure formula would be exposed. The origin ancient word could not be exposed now, or else it would bring a great disaster. It doesn't matter if it's slow, Lu Ming said. Then his palm and the beautiful woman's palm touched. The beautiful woman's palm had been frozen into ice. It was as cold as a piece of 10,000-year-old ice. When they stuck to each other, the measure formula burst out with an attractive force. It flowed along Lu Ming's palm and rushed into the beautiful woman's body. The cold air in the beautiful woman's body was continuously absorbed by Lu Ming's palm and then entered the measure formula. The Absolute Beauty blinked her eyes twice. She was rather curious. She did not expect Lu Ming to have such means. Initially she thought that she was dead for sure. Buzz, buzz, and NBSP whoosh. At this moment the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. It came from the direction of the passageway that Lu Ming and the rest had entered from. There's someone. Lu Ming's expression changed. He didn't expect that someone would be able to find their way in here. The next moment, 5 figures appeared in the underground space. It's them. Lu Ming saw 5 figures at a glance. They were the white-haired young man and the other 4 he had met earlier. The white-haired young man and the other 4 swept their gazes across the room and their eyes landed on Lu Ming and the beautiful lady. They were shocked to see the beautiful lady, but their eyes lit up when they swept their gazes across the scene. They were not stupid. After seeing the corpse of the vine and the situation of Lu Ming and the beautiful woman, how could they not guess? Ah, this is the Myriad Rivers Ice Vine. I didn't expect that this place would actually give birth to a Myriad Rivers Ice Vine. What great luck. A young man laughed excitedly when he saw the corpse of the vine. His eyes were filled with a fiery light. The greatest luck is that the Myriad River Ice Vine has been killed. We don't have to do anything now, ha? Another young man laughed. It's you? Get lost. The absolute beauty shouted coldly when she saw the white-haired young man and the others. Aoyo, you're still so arrogant. Did we interrupt your date with your little lover? You're still so arrogant in your current state. You really don't know what's good for you. The white-haired young man cried out as he stared at the beautiful woman with an unfriendly look. The absolute beauty was furious and her almond-shaped eyes widened. If it wasn't for the fact that her entire body was frozen by the cold air, she would have immediately attacked and taught the white-haired youth and the others a profound lesson. You what? With your current condition, do you still want to deal with us? You can't even protect yourself, right? The white-haired young man sized up the beautiful woman and revealed an unscrupulous smile. A beauty like you is rare. Don't worry, I'll let you have a good time before I kill you. The white-haired young man laughed. The absolute Bowtie's face turned pale in an instant. She naturally knew what the white-haired young man was going to do. Quick, Lu Ming, kill me. I'm begging you, kill me. The absolute beauty sent a voice transmission to Lu Ming. She would rather die than be humiliated by the white-haired young man. How unlucky, Lu Ming muttered. He didn't expect that the white-haired young man and the others would come again after he dealt with the vines. Lu Ming could escape from the white-haired young man and the rest. The key was that he had yet to obtain the gem on the vine's head. It would be a pity to leave like this. Moreover, he might not be able to escape safely if he were to leave with the absolute beauty. Lu Ming's eyes darted around and he began to think of countermeasures. Third brother, let's hurry up and get rid of this brat, lest a long night brings trouble. One of the young men said. All right, leave this kid to me. You guys collect the corpse of the Myriad Rivers Ice Vine and leave this place after quickly dealing with it. With that, the white-haired young man walked toward Lu Ming, while the other young men walked toward the vines. One of the young men walked up to the vine and tried to use a storage ring to store the vine's body. At this moment, a sudden change occurred. The vines that were originally motionless suddenly moved again. A few vines started to dance like snakes and charged towards the young men. This situation was beyond everyone's expectations. The vine clearly had no life left, so why did it suddenly move again? Not only the white-haired young man, but even Lu Ming and the beautiful woman were stunned. Caught off guard, one of the young men was directly pierced by a vine. Then with a swing of the vine, he picked up the young man and smashed him heavily onto the ground. Boom. The ground trembled and the young man was killed on the spot. Speed up, please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. The white-haired young man and the rest were a total of 5 people. The white-haired young man walked towards Lu Ming and the absolute beauty while the other 4 walked towards the Myriad River Ice Vine. The Myriad Rivers Ice Vine suddenly launched an attack and one of the 9th-level celestial deity youths was killed immediately. The other 8 vines danced wildly and attacked the other 3 youths. Bang. Bang. 2 of the young men reacted slightly faster and exploded with attacks to block, but they were still hit by the vines. Their bodies were sent flying and they crashed into the wall, spitting out large mouthfuls of blood. There was another woman who was not so lucky. Her reaction was slightly slower and she was immediately entangled by a vine. The temperature of the vines was shockingly low. As the woman was wrapped by the vines, her body was immediately covered in a layer of ice. The vine pulled the woman toward its big mouth. Help, help! The woman struggled with all her might and screamed. Release him! The white-haired young man roared. He took a step forward and rushed toward the Myriad Rivers Ice Vine. In the process, he turned into an ice snow lion and roared. A terrifying storm rushed toward the Myriad Rivers Ice Vine. Boom! Boom! The white-haired young man's attack landed on the vines of the Myriad Rivers Ice Vine, causing a violent vibration. However, the vines of the Myriad Rivers Ice Vine were extremely tough, so the white-haired young man's attack couldn't break them at all. The vine was still pulling the woman into the mouth. Help! The woman cried out in despair. Let's attack together. The white-haired young man roared as he continuously struck out with his sharp claws. His claws were like the blades of a divine blade as he clawed at the vines. Clang. The sharp claws scratched the rattan, making a sound of metal clashing. Sparks flew in all directions, but they could only leave a few marks on the rattan. Even the most beautiful woman couldn't break the vines, so the white-haired young man naturally couldn't either. At this moment, the other two young men who had been sent flying by the vines also pounced over. They transformed into ice snow lions and fought with the vines. However, it was of no help. Buzz. The vine wrapped around the woman and threw her into its mouth. The woman's cry suddenly stopped and there was no sound. The myriad river's ice vine's mouth was filled with a terrifying chill. The woman was thrown in and naturally couldn't resist it. Roar. After devouring the woman, the myriad river ice vine roared madly. The 9 vines rushed towards the white-haired young man and the other 2 madly. The shadows of the vines covered the sky and enveloped the 3 of them. At this moment, even if the white-haired young man and the other 2 wanted to escape, it would be difficult. They tried to attack a few times but were blocked by the vines. "I'll fight you to the death." The white-haired young man roared and fought with the myriad river ice vine. "My strength is not as good as before," Lu Ming muttered. He realized that the strength of the myriad river's ice vine was much weaker than when he was fighting with them. Otherwise, the white-haired young man and the others would have been in danger. But now, the white-haired young man and the other 2 were able to fight against the myriad river ice vine. "I didn't expect this ice vine to have a secondary core," the quantity formula said. "Subcore." Lu Ming was puzzled. "That's right. This myriad river's ice vine has a subcore in addition to its main core. Just now, when you shattered the main core, the myriad river's ice vine wasn't completely dead. It was awakening its subcore. However, a subcore is a subcore after all. It's far from being comparable to the main core. It seems that this ice vine's spiritual intelligence has been greatly reduced. It has already gone crazy and only knows how to attack. Its strength has also been greatly reduced," the quantity formula explained. Lu Ming understood. He could not help but secretly rejoice in his heart. It turned out that the myriad river's ice vine had a subcore. Fortunately, the white-haired young man and the rest had come. Otherwise, if Lu Ming had gone to retrieve the gem on the myriad river's ice vine's head and the myriad river's ice vine suddenly woke up and attacked, the consequences would be unpredictable. This won't do. If this goes on, the winner will be decided very soon. At that time, it will be disadvantageous for both of us. We must absorb the cold qi from her body as soon as possible. Old Liang, can't you be faster? Lu Ming sent a voice transmission to the quantity formula. If I hurry, it'll be easily exposed. And your palms are separated by palms, too far from her heart and brain. The heart and brain are both fragile parts. If I increase my strength, the cold air will hurt her heart and brain, the quantity formula said. Then how can we increase the speed? Lu Ming asked again. It's simple. Place one hand on her forehead and the other on her heart. This way it'll be able to perform better when we're closer, the quantity formula said. Ah. Lu Ming was in a difficult position. It was fine if it was stuck to the forehead, but if it was stuck to the girl's heart, it was a little. Hurry up. You're a man and yet you're still so wishy-washy. Don't say that I didn't warn you when the outcome of the battle is decided. The quantity formula called out. Alright. Lu Ming gritted his teeth and stared at the beautiful woman. Miss, you can see the situation now. In order to save you as soon as possible, I'm sorry. With that, Lu Ming placed one hand on the beautiful woman's forehead and his other hand on her heart. What are you doing? No, don't, the woman cried out. However, Lu Ming could not be bothered with her. He placed his palm on the woman's heart. The woman's voice stopped abruptly. She stared at Lu Ming with her big watery eyes. Her eyes were filled with anger, shyness, and other complicated emotions. Her originally white face had also turned red. Cough, cough. Being stared at so intently, Lu Ming could not help but feel a little embarrassed despite his thick skin. He coughed a few times and said to the quantity word formula, Old Liang, you'd better hurry. Leave it to me, the quantity formula glowed. A strong suction force flowed along Lu Ming's palm and entered the beautiful woman's heart and brain, absorbing the cold air in her body. The cold qi in her body was absorbed by the Liang word art at an alarming rate. The ice on the beautiful woman's body quickly melted and disappeared. Her body gradually regained its warmth. At this moment, the battle between the three-headed snow lion and the myriad river ice vine had already entered a state of white heat. Although the myriad river's ice vine only had its subcore left, it had lost its intelligence and was completely mad. Its combat strength was also extremely terrifying, suppressing the three-headed snow lion. Finally, one of the frost lions couldn't hold on any longer and an ice vine pierced through its head, killing it on the spot. As such, only the white-haired youth and the other youth were left. "Third brother, what should we do? Are we going to die here?" the other young man said in fear. This young man was also a half-step divine king. He was slightly weaker than the white-haired young man, but he was still very strong. They had tried many times to rush out, but the 9 vines were waving so tightly that they were airtight, completely blocking their retreat. Blue Spirit, please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. Today, only by killing him will we have a chance to kill him. His vital point is that head. Let's join forces and kill him. The white-haired young man was a decisive man. Since he couldn't escape, he could only risk his life. The two of them came up with a plan through voice transmission. Roar, roar. The 2 snow lions roared and used the lion's roar technique. The air was overbearing and blew away a few vines. Then the 2 rushed towards the vines' heads. However, there were 9 vines in total. Immediately, the rest of the vines shot towards the 2 frost lions. "He'll block the vines, you go and kill him." At this moment, an ice snow lion roared loudly. His entire body was burning with divine power. He opened his mouth and roared. One after another, lions flew out from his mouth and charged towards the vines. This was a secret technique that was condensed from divine power. This frost lion was going all out. It burned its divine power and activated a terrifying secret technique. Boom, boom, boom. The lions rushed out one after another, slamming into the vines and actually temporarily pushing away the 9 vines. How could the white-haired young man miss such an opportunity? His entire body glowed and he roared as he charged towards the head of the myriad river's ice vine. He waved his sharp claws and streaks of claw radiance clawed at the head of the myriad river's ice vine. Roar. The myriad river's ice vine roared and opened its mouth. Icicles shot out from its mouth and collided with the white-haired youth's claw radiance. At the same time, the ultimate cold gem on the head of the myriad river ice vine glowed. A white beam of light shot toward the white-haired youth. This beam of light was extremely terrifying and its speed was shocking. Previously, even the absolute beauty and Lu Ming could not avoid it. The white-haired young man naturally couldn't avoid it and was hit by the white beam. The white-haired youth's body stiffened as soon as he was hit by the white light. A layer of ice crystals appeared on the surface of his body at an alarming speed. The snow lion cultivated divine power of the cold attribute and it controlled divine-grade divine power, but it could not block the cold air of the light beam. Bang! The white-haired young man's huge body fell to the ground, unable to move at all. He wasn't dead yet and his eyes were filled with fear. Roar! The other snow lion let out a furious roar. However, there was only 1 snow lion left, and it was even less of a match for the 10,000 rivers ice vines. The 9 ice vines danced wildly, attacking the snow lion like a storm. Soon the snow lion couldn't hold on any longer. Its body was hit continuously and it was seriously injured. "If we're going to die, we'll die together." The ice lion's eyes were filled with madness as it charged towards the myriad river ice vine, its body emitting a blinding white light. He was going to self-destruct. In the next moment, with a terrifying explosion, the frost lion self-destructed, and the terrifying energy swept through the entire underground space. Not good. Lu Ming reached out and grabbed the beautiful woman's slender waist. His figure flashed and he retreated far away. He set up layers of defense in front of him to offset the impact of the outside world. The light dissipated and the self-destructing snow lion had disappeared. The white-haired youth who was frozen and on the verge of death had also completely fallen. As for the myriad river's ice vine, it was obviously injured as well. It was at the center of the explosion and there were several big holes in its head. Its aura was much weaker. Roar. The myriad river's ice vine howled and glared at Lu Ming and the beautiful woman with its furious eyes. The 9 vines danced and rushed toward Lu Ming and the beautiful woman. "Good, I can make it." At this moment, Lu Ming heaved a long sigh of relief. He suddenly let go of the beautiful woman and retreated quickly. Boom. Lu Ming had just retreated when a powerful aura burst out from the beautiful woman. Lu Ming had finally absorbed the last bit of cold air in the beautiful woman's body. Once the cold air was absorbed, the beautiful woman's powerful cultivation burst out in full force. That was why Lu Ming had retreated in a hurry. Who knew if the absolute beauty would kill him after she recovered? The absolute Bowtie's eyes were cold as she swept a glance at Lu Ming. In the end, her figure flashed and she charged at the myriad river's ice vine. Die! The absolute beauty shouted and sword light burst out one after another, aiming for the myriad river ice vine's head. Because of the subcore, the myriad river's ice vine's strength was not as strong as before. Just now it was injured by the snow lion's self-explosion, so its strength had weakened a lot. In this way it was no match for the beautiful woman at all. As for the absolute beauty, all she had to do was to pay attention to the white light beam that the other party shot out. Boosh, boosh. The sword lights attacked the myriad river ice vine like a tide. Some of the sword lights pushed the opponent's vines away, while the rest of the sword lights hit the head of the myriad river's ice vine, leaving sword wounds on its head. Roar. The myriad river's ice vine roared madly. It had no spiritual intelligence. Its head glowed and another beam of light flew out from the gem. However, this time the absolute beauty was already on guard. She was far enough away and her figure flashed, avoiding the light beam. Slash, die. The beautiful woman shouted as she held her sword with both hands. A terrifying sword light shot into the sky. Then the sword light slashed at the myriad river ice vine. The sword light was too powerful. It was the all-out attack of the absolute beauty. It directly swept away the 9 vines and slashed at the head of the myriad river's ice vine. The myriad river's ice vine's head was instantly split in half. With this, the myriad river's ice vine had completely fallen. Its huge corpse fell heavily to the ground. After killing the myriad river's ice vine, the absolute beauty turned around and looked at Lu Ming. Lu Ming's body tensed up and he was ready for a big battle. You saved my life this time, so I'll spare you this time. Next time we meet I won't let you go. Remember the one who killed you, Lan Ling. After leaving behind these cold words, the absolute beauty turned into a sword light and rushed into the passage, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Who? After the beautiful woman left, Lu Ming secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the absolute beauty still had some conscience and didn't continue to kill him. Otherwise he would have to prepare to escape again. Lan Ling, is that her name? Lu Ming muttered. He then shook his head and smiled bitterly. He had mixed feelings. No one would be able to remain calm when a beautiful woman appeared out of nowhere and said that she wanted to marry him. I have to improve my strength as soon as possible. Otherwise, he'll be hunted down by this crazy woman again the next time I see her. Lu Ming underestimated it and walked towards the myriad river's ice vine. The myriad river's ice vine's head had been split in half by the blue spirit sword. Its subcore had also been shattered by the destructive sword chi. It couldn't be more dead. Fortunately, the chilling gem is fine. Lu Ming looked at the gem on the head of the myriad river's ice vine. It was still intact. Fortunately, the angle of Lan Ling's attack was slightly off. Otherwise, if the gemstone was shattered, Lu Ming would vomit blood. In a flash, he appeared on the myriad river's ice vine's head. Lu Ming took out a combat sword and removed the glacial gem from the myriad river's ice vine's head. Refining the Rotten, please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. The gem was extremely cold and it emanated a terrifying cold air. The quality of this gem is definitely not inferior to the Ice Jade Cold Heart of the Ice Soul clan. Lu Ming muttered. Kid, with this extreme cold gem I can neutralize a portion of the energy in the star core. I can quickly refine a portion of the energy. The quantity formula said. Alright, then you can absorb it. Lu Ming said. Following that, Lu Ming's glabella glowed and the measure formula flew out. It shone at the utmost cold gem and the gem disappeared, being absorbed by the measure formula. After the quantity formula was absorbed, it flew back to Lu Ming's sea of consciousness. It quieted down and began to refine the energy. Lu Ming sized him up. First, his gaze fell on the 9 vines of the myriad river ice vine. The myriad river's ice vine was born naturally. It could be said that its entire body was a treasure. Lu Ming was especially envious of the 9 vines. He had witnessed the power of the 9 vines in the previous battle. Not only were they extremely tough, but they were also filled with a terrifying chill. If the 9 vines were to be refined into the ice shackles, wouldn't the power of the ice shackles increase greatly? The power of the ice shackles was not bad, but it also had a weakness, and that was its fragility. Against cultivators of the same level or even 1, 2 or 3 levels higher, it was still effective. However, the enemies that Lu Ming was facing were usually 4 to 5 levels higher than him or even more. The ice chains were easily broken. However, if he refined this kind of rattan, the weakness of the ice shackles would disappear, and its power would definitely increase. He did as he said. However, there was a problem that gave Lu Ming a headache. How could he cut the rattan? Lu Ming walked around the corpse of the Myriad River's ice vine and his eyes lit up. He took out a combat sword and started slashing at the place where the vine and the root of the head were connected. The Myriad River's ice vine's head was not that hard. Very soon Lu Ming removed one of the vines. It's so heavy. Lu Ming grabbed the rattan and waved it slightly. As the rattan waved, it pierced through the air and made a terrifying whistling sound. It was extremely heavy and there was a cold air that drilled into Lu Ming's arm. Lu Ming was not shocked. Instead, he was happy. The more mysterious the vine was, the greater the benefits. Lu Ming immediately sat down cross-legged and with a thought, an ice chain flew out. This ice chain had been refined into a ball of cold liquid and it was the most powerful. Lu Ming had to first refine the rattan into this ice chain. And NBSP he used the ice chain secret technique, and the ice chains wriggled and merged with the vines. Then he started to refine them. Of course, this kind of rattan was extremely tough. It was not easy to refine it. Lu Ming spent half a month to completely refine the rattan and integrate it into the ice chains. With a thought, the ice chains danced like long snakes. Ooh! The ice chains whipped in the air, erupting with a terrifying whistling sound. Bang! The ice chain struck the ground, causing the ground to shake and gravel to fly everywhere. A ditch a few meters deep was created. What a powerful force! Lu Ming's eyes lit up. One had to know that the ground here had been eroded by the cold nether energy for many years and had long been extremely hard. However, a whip from the ice chain had caused great damage, while the ice chain itself was not affected at all. Then Lu Ming took out a high-grade divine sword and slashed at the ice chains with all his might. Clang! Sparks flew in all directions, and the divine sword hummed and vibrated non-stop. However, there was not a single mark on the ice chains. Tough, it's too tough. It has completely inherited the characteristics of the Myriad River ice vine. That's a good idea. The Myriad River's ice vine was born naturally and has endless potential. It was far from reaching its peak before. So, as long as you refine its vines into your secret skill, the power of your secret skill will continue to improve as your cultivation improves. The quantity formula said. Old Liang, how's the refining of the energy going? Lu Ming looked delighted. Refining energy can't be done overnight, but I've already refined a portion of it. I can transfer it to you now. The quantity formula said. Let's wait for a while. I'll refine all the remaining vines first. Lu Ming said. Following that, Lu Ming continued to struggle. He cut off the remaining 8 vines and refined them into his ice chains. Lu Ming realized that the remaining ice chains were more difficult to fuse with the rattan. It also took a longer time. Just like that, Lu Ming spent a whole year to refine the remaining 8 vines and integrate them into the ice chains. With a single thought, the 9 ice chains danced in the air, making a terrifying whistling sound. With another thought, the 9 ice chains disappeared without a trace. He could use it freely. In this case, my combat strength has increased a little. Lu Ming smiled. Now the 9 ice chains were extremely tough. They could be used to attack and defend. Ordinary people couldn't break them at all. This greatly increased Lu Ming's life-saving energy. Old Liang, now transfer the refined energy to me. Lu Ming sent a voice transmission to the quantity formula. Now it was time to improve his cultivation. Alright, pay attention. The sound of the quantity formula was heard. Following that, a wave of dense and pure energy emerged. Lu Ming sat cross-legged and began to absorb this energy to cultivate. This kind of energy was extremely pure. Lu Ming could easily refine it and transform it into his own divine power. In his dantian, the divine fire formed by the 5 types of divine-grade divine power continued to grow. Those 5 divine flames were originally equivalent to first-level heavenly deities. At this moment, they were rapidly approaching second-level heavenly deities. A few days later, the flames of the 5 divine flames suddenly skyrocketed, successfully charging to second-level celestial deity. The upgrade continued. 10 days later, the 5 divine flames assailed the third-level celestial deity realm again. This speed was extremely shocking. This meant that Lu Ming was constantly breaking through realms. If he were to cultivate normally, he would definitely need to spend a lot of time. A few hundred years would be considered little, and a few thousand years or even 10,000 years would be considered normal. This was the advantage of having the measure formula. The 5 divine flames were still rising, continuously approaching the 4th-level celestial deity realm. However, when it rose to the peak of the 3rd-level celestial deity realm, it no longer had any energy. The energy that emerged from the quantity formula had been completely refined. Is there any more? Lu Ming said to the quantity word formula with eager eyes. You should be satisfied to have so much energy in a year. The quantity formula said. Lu Ming was speechless. However, after thinking about it, he felt that he should be satisfied. If he didn't have the extreme cold gem, even if he used the quantity formula to refine the energy of a star's core, it would still take hundreds of years. Now he could achieve it in a year. Lu Ming should be satisfied. Cultivation base breakthrough. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. However, there's still a lot of energy left in the freezing gem. It can also neutralize the energy of many star cores. Just wait. The quantity formula said. Lu Ming nodded and immediately started to cultivate. This underground space was very remote. It was already in the cold nether forbidden ground, so almost no one came here. Ever since Lan Ling left, no one else came to the place. Lu Ming was happy to be idle and he was focused on cultivating. When the quantity formula had not transferred energy to him, Lu Ming had been focused on comprehending the secret skill. When there was energy, Lu Ming would refine it. Every few months, the quantity formula would give him a stream of energy. Just like that, another 2 years passed. Lu Ming had been here for more than 3 years. In the past 3 years, Lu Ming's cultivation level had improved rapidly. In the beginning, the divine fire condensed from the 5 types of divine-grade divine energy had all been raised to the same level as the ruler's divine energy and inextinguishable sword force. Then the 9 types of divine energy broke through together. Just a few days ago, Lu Ming had successfully broken through to 5th-tier celestial god. The 9 types of divine energy in his body had all broken through to the 5th-level celestial deity realm. This caused Lu Ming's combat strength to skyrocket. With my current combat strength, it shouldn't be difficult for me to deal with the white-haired young man. Lu Ming muttered, secretly estimating his ability. The white-haired young man was a half-step divine king and his divine power was about 60 to 70% awakened. 3 years ago, Lu Ming was definitely not this person's match. However, Lu Ming was confident that he could defeat this person now. Lu Ming estimated that his current ability should be equivalent to a half-step divine king. The degree of awakening of his divine power was about 80 to 90% of the geniuses. The comparison of strength here referred to the geniuses who controlled divine-grade divine power. Without divine-grade divine power, there was no such thing as awakening divine power. However, Lu Ming was probably no match for the powerful indigo spirit. My attack-type divine skill is still at the 7th level. If I can break through to the 8th level, it'll be even stronger. Lu Ming pondered. However, such strength was already considered to be at the top among the Heaven's Pride experts who had entered Starmoon Ancient City. After all, there were only a few top talents who had awakened the origin divine power factor. Unfortunately, the energy of the chilling gem has been used up. Otherwise, I could continue to try. Lu Ming muttered and shook his head. He knew that he was being greedy. This time, not only had his other 5 types of divine-grade divine power increased, but his cultivation had also broken through 1 level. This was already a great harvest. One had to know that he had broken through with 9 types of divine power at the same time. The amount of energy required was too terrifying. If he only cultivated 1 type of energy, he would definitely rise by more than 1 level. I've already wasted more than 3 years. It's time for me to go out and take a walk. It's not easy for me to come to Starmoon Ancient City. I can't waste my time like this. Lu Ming smiled and left the place. Not long after, Lu Ming reached the surface and flew out of the land of the cold nether. Very few people came to the cold nether forbidden ground. Lu Ming flew all the way and did not meet a single person. Not long after, Lu Ming left the range of the cold nether forbidden ground. After leaving the cold nether forbidden grounds, Lu Ming took out a map and looked at it. This map was naturally the map given to him by Wuxia. Very soon Lu Ming locked onto the location. Myriad God Cliff. On the map there was a big circle and the place was marked in big black characters. This was an important place in Star Moon Ancient City. Previously Wu Zixiong and the rest had mentioned that Lu Ming could cultivate at Myriad God Cliff when he was free. This was because this place could help people awaken the origin divine power factor. It was said that many people had awakened the origin divine power factor at Myriad God Cliff in the past. Or perhaps, some people had returned to the universal camp after cultivating at Myriad God Cliff and awakened their origin genes. This was a place that they had to go to once they entered Star Moon Ancient City. A few years ago, if Lu Ming had not been looking for supreme cold treasures to improve his strength, he would have gone there long ago. However, it was not too late to go now. Lu Ming followed the directions on the map and headed towards Myriad God Cliff. 2 days later, Lu Ming arrived at Myriad God Cliff. Myriad God Cliff was a cliff. However, this cliff was very magnificent. It was hundreds of thousands of feet high and there were many statues carved on the cliff. The statues were of different sizes and they were carved with different gods. Some were ferocious, some were majestic and some were terrifying. At a glance there really were no less than 10,000. It was said that these statues were all carvings of primitive gods. And in the air outside Myriad God Cliff, there were stone platforms floating in the air. These stone platforms were extremely huge. Each one was 10 miles in length and width. From high to low, from far to near, they were like steps floating in the air. On each of these stone platforms, there was a figure sitting cross-legged. On each stone platform there was only one figure. There were also many figures standing in the void outside the stone platform, watching from afar. Lu Ming flew over. Many people glanced at him and ignored him. Although Lu Ming had passed through the sky gate and many people knew him, his cultivation level was very low. These people did not take it to heart. Lu Ming did not mind and looked forward. There was a person sitting cross-legged on each of the stone platforms, and a layer of light enveloped each person. "Brother, why is there only one person on each stone platform? Can't the others go up?" Lu Ming asked a young man who looked simple and honest. "You just got here, right?" The honest-looking young man glanced at him. Yes. Lu Ming said with a smile. It's said that this stone platform was used by ancient deities during the early stages of the Heavenly Palace to observe the Myriad God Cliff's cultivation. Ancient deities were all extremely huge, which is why this stone platform is so big. And each stone platform can only accommodate one person at a time. If there are too many people, they will be bounced off. The honest-looking young man explained. I see. Lu Ming came to a realization. No wonder there was only one person on each stone platform. Now that the stone platform has been occupied by them, won't we have no chance? Lu Ming asked again. Of course there's a chance, but everything must be fought for with strength. The honest-looking young man said. Fight for it with your own strength? What do you mean? Lu Ming asked. This stone platform was set up with a powerful restriction in the early days of the Heavenly Palace era. It operates according to a certain rule. If a person practices on a stone platform, the formation of the stone platform will protect him. The honest-looking young man explained. Lu Ming nodded. There was a layer of light on the people on the stone platform. It was the power of the formation's protection. With the protection of the formation you can cultivate in peace. Others can't attack you. However, this protection has a time limit. After 3 months this protection will disappear. Of course, it will only disappear for a short period of time. It will only last for 1 day. After 1 day the protective power of the formation will appear again. Therefore today is the day to fight for the stone platform. The honest-looking young man said. Chapter 3014 Settling Accounts. Please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. After hearing the honest young man's explanation, Lu Ming roughly understood the rules of cultivation here. When one cultivated on each stone platform, they would be protected by a large formation for 3 months. After 3 months, the protection of the formation would disappear for a day. On this day the others could compete for the stone platform. Whoever defeated the person on the stone platform could replace the other party and cultivate on the stone platform for 3 months. In other words, on the stone platform, one had to accept a challenge every 3 months. If one could defeat the challenger, they could continue to cultivate. On this stone platform, the higher you go and the closer you are to Myriad God Cliff, the better the effects of cultivation. Therefore you can also challenge those who go up. However, the higher you are on the stone platform, the more powerful you are. Ordinary people are no match for you, the honest-looking young man explained. Lu Ming nodded, his gaze landing on the stone platform at the top. There were 3 stone platforms at the very top and the one closest to Myriad God Cliff. 3 figures were sitting cross-legged on them. It's him. Lu Ming recognized one of them. He was one of the 4 top geniuses who had passed the Heaven's Gate. He was a half-step divine king who had awakened the divine power source. Although the other 2 had not awakened the origin divine power factor, their abilities were probably also extremely shocking. Following that, Lu Ming's gaze moved downwards. He discovered that there were a total of 108 stone platforms. Some of the stone platforms even had people Lu Ming was familiar with. People from the Qin clan and the Jin clan. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with coldness. On a few stone platforms sat people from the Qin clan. These people were the ones who had wanted to surround and kill Lu Ming. In addition, there were also acquaintances in the Jin family. Jin Xing was one of them. Everyone's here, hee. Lu Ming sneered, his voice cold. By the way, brother, how long can each of us cultivate up there? Lu Ming asked again. Everyone can cultivate for 3 years. After 3 years you can't go up unless you wait for the next time you come in. The honest-looking young man explained. Lu Ming nodded. It was no wonder that a few of the top talents were not around. Logically speaking, those talents would not miss such a place. It seemed that some of them had already cultivated for 3 years. Perhaps some of them were not in a hurry. After all, they could stay in Star Moon Ancient City for 10 years. Everyone stood in the air and waited quietly. Many of them were ready for a big battle at any time. There were more wolves than meat. There were only 108 stone platforms in total, but there were thousands of people here. Even if each person could only cultivate for 3 years, many people could not go up there to cultivate. If they wanted to go up there to cultivate, they could only compete with their strength. Very quickly a day had passed. Someone's 3-month deadline is coming up. Suddenly someone spoke, his eyes shining. Many people's gazes fell on a young man with a scale between his brows in the bottommost row. People from the Qin family, what a coincidence. I want this seat. Lu Ming muttered. At this moment the light barrier around the Qin clan's heavens chosen suddenly began to glow. When the light reached its limit, it quickly dimmed. Then the heavens chosen opened his eyes. At the same time at least 100 figures rushed out towards the stone platform. I want this stone platform. Who do you think you are? Get lost. This challenge is mine. It's mine. Angry roars rang out one after another, and then a brilliant divine light filled the air. Hundreds of people fought fiercely in the air. Everyone wanted to step onto the stone platform and obtain the right to challenge. Whoever stepped onto the stone platform first would have the right to challenge. Boom. 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 In the void there were constant rumbles and terrifying explosions. All kinds of divine light and attacks were constantly colliding. However, the young men who were cultivating on the stone platform didn't seem to feel anything. It was obvious that the light shield formed by the formation protected them and even isolated them from the outside world. This way they could cultivate in peace and not be disturbed by the outside world. A total of more than 100 heavens favorites were fighting intensely. For a moment no one could step onto the stone platform. This was because whoever approached the stone platform would be attacked by the others. Ah! A Heaven's Pride expert let out a blood-curdling screech. He wanted to rush up the stone platform but he was attacked by the others. Dozens of divine lights drowned that Heaven's Pride expert. After the blood-curdling screech, that Heaven's Pride expert vanished into thin air, leaving nothing behind. The killing continued. People were constantly injured and people were retreating. The remaining people didn't make a move because some of them knew their own limitations. They knew that they weren't strong enough and wouldn't be able to compete even if they went up. I want this stone platform. At this moment the corners of Lu Ming's mouth curled into a faint smile. His figure suddenly moved and he dashed toward the stone platform like a bolt of lightning. His speed was astonishing as he rapidly approached the stone platform. However, the others had also noticed Lu Ming. You're looking for death. Get lost. Many people made their moves. In an instant, dozens of divine lights shot toward Lu Ming. The Kun Peng of the 9th heaven. Kun Peng. Lu Ming shouted in a low voice and used the 9 heavenly Kun Peng technique. His divine power condensed into a Kun Peng. With a flap of its wings, his figure suddenly accelerated and dodged the attacks. In the next moment he landed on the stone platform. So fast. Many people's hearts trembled. They actually didn't have the time to make a move just now. After that, many people sighed. It seemed that they wouldn't have a share of this stone platform. Once someone stepped onto the stone platform, the others would no longer be able to compete. Seeing that Lu Ming had stepped onto the stone platform, the battle in the air stopped and everyone's eyes fell on Lu Ming. Stepping onto the stone platform was only the first step. In order to obtain the right to cultivate on the stone platform, one had to defeat the person who had cultivated before. Unless the other party voluntarily withdrew after the 3 years were up. Lu Ming, it's you. The Qin clan's paragon looked at Lu Ming with a cold gaze. Of course it's me. It's time to settle the score with you all for besieging me that day. Lu Ming said coldly. Settle accounts? Just you? The Qin clan's paragon sneered as a powerful aura emanated from his body. 9th level celestial deity. The cultivation of this Qin clan's heaven's pride expert was at the 9th level of the heavenly deity realm. Furthermore, this time he had already cultivated on this stone platform for half a year. The degree of his divine power awakening had increased by a lot and had already reached 50%. Lu Ming wanted to settle scores with him? You're looking for death. Boom. Lu Ming could not be bothered to waste his breath on him. He took a step forward and a huge aura rose. All the divine power in his body exploded. The divine power on the surface of his body jumped and burned like flames. After that, the battle formula was activated. However, Lu Ming did not use his ancient god body. With Lu Ming's current cultivation, he did not need the ancient god body to deal with a 9th-tier celestial god with a 50% awakened divine power. A terrifying aura rushed toward the other party like an avalanche. The other party's pupils suddenly widened and he exclaimed, "Your aura? How is this possible?" The Qin family's youth was frightened. How could a 5th-level celestial deity have such a terrifying aura? Primitive God, please continue reading on Oxful. Omicron. Divine energy surged from Lu Ming's body and formed a shockwave that spread in all directions. The power of the aura not only shocked the Qin family's paragon, but also the other people around him. Such an aura was simply stronger than the 9th-level heavenly deity Qin clan's prodigy. Ice chains. Lu Ming muttered and 9 ice chains rushed out from his body. 7 injury divine fist. At this moment the Qin clan's heaven's favorite finally reacted. With an angry roar his body glowed and he punched out. A huge fist print as big as a mountain came crashing down on Lu Ming. Bang, bang, bang. And NBSP 3 of the ice chains struck the fist seal, causing it to shake and explode, but the ice chains were completely fine. After refining the 9 vines of the myriad river's ice vine, the ice chains became extremely tough. It was impossible for the other party to break them. The other 6 ice chains flew forward and continued to attack the Qin clan's paragon. The Qin clan's paragon's expression changed drastically. He unleashed all of his strength and even injured himself. He spat out blood and increased the power of his 7 injury divine fist. Boom, boom. He threw a few more punches in an attempt to break the ice chains. However, after the ice chains collided with the fist seal, they only flicked slightly and changed directions. Then they continued to attack the Qin clan's heaven's pride expert. A few ice chains pierced through the defense of the Qin clan's heaven's favorite and wrapped around him. A terrifying coldness spread out. A layer of ice immediately appeared on the body of the Qin clan's heaven's chosen, making him unable to move at all. Spare me, spare me. The Qin clan's heaven's pride expert was scared to death as he roared. Outside of the stone platform the others were also dumbfounded. It's over? It had only been a few moves and the Qin clan's prodigy was already defeated. Wasn't he defeated too quickly? What a powerful secret skill. Lu Ming's secret skill is so powerful. I didn't expect that his strength is actually so shocking. Just a 5th-level celestial deity, no wonder he can pass through the heavenly gate. Many people sighed. You wanted to kill me before. Is it possible for you to beg for mercy now? Lu Ming's indifferent voice was heard. With a single thought, an ice chain was like a sharp spear, piercing towards the other party's eyebrows. The other party's glabella was pierced through, and after struggling for a moment he died. Then he swung the ice chain and threw the corpse out of the stone platform. After settling the Qin family's prodigy, Lu Ming sat down cross-legged and waited for the day to pass. There was only one chance to challenge. If Lu Ming succeeded in his challenge, the others could not continue to challenge him. If they wanted to challenge him, they could only do so 3 months later. When the day came, there was a light screen on the stone platform that enveloped Lu Ming. At this moment, Lu Ming's vision turned black and he was completely plunged into darkness. Boom. Boom. All of a sudden, Lu Ming felt a terrifying roar coming from outside. The world shook violently. Lu Ming quickly opened his eyes and was shocked by the scene in front of him. In the universe, a group of giants were fighting. The so-called giants were simply too huge. Each giant stood in the universe and was astonishingly burly. Their fists were bigger than a planet. Ancient god or primitive god spirit. Lu Ming's heart was beating violently. All of them were primitive gods. A group of primitive godly spirits were fighting fiercely. The universe was boiling and the stars were falling like meteors. Some stars exploded like fireworks. This was the true destruction of the world. In such a great battle, it would not take long for a galaxy to be destroyed. Not good. Suddenly, Lu Ming's expression changed drastically. This was because he saw a ray of divine power rushing towards him. This divine power was filled with an ancient aura. After awakening the origin factor of divine power, it was somewhat similar to this aura, but there was a huge difference. This was the difference in essence. That was because this was the original divine power controlled by the original god. Lu Ming's heart was in his throat. His entire body was tense. He wanted to escape, but he realized that he could not. Am I going to die here? Lu Ming had a thought. That divine power was too terrifying. If he was hit, he would definitely not be left with even a bit of residue. Even a peak divine king or a figure above divine king would be killed instantly by such a divine power, let alone him. The speed of the divine power was too fast. Lu Ming had only had a few thoughts and the divine power had already struck him. However, Lu Ming did not feel anything at all. Lu Ming looked at himself and touched himself. He realized that he was fine. It was as if he was transparent. The divine power rushed through his body and struck a huge planet in the distance. The planet exploded with a boom. I'm fine. Are these all illusions? Lu Ming swallowed his saliva and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Following that, he carefully observed. Indeed, all of this was an illusion and not real. Perhaps it was a projection from countless years ago. Then Lu Ming thought of the god statues on the myriad god cliff. Perhaps they were projected by the god statues. However, the fluctuation of divine power can be felt. Different primitive gods control different divine powers. Lu Ming observed carefully, his eyes bright. These primordial divine powers controlled different types of origin divine power. Many of the divine-grade divine powers now, if they were traced back to their roots, were most likely evolved from these origin divine powers. If he could find the origin divine power that had the same source as the divine-grade divine power he controlled and study it carefully, he would definitely gain a lot. No wonder it was said that this place had a great effect on one's comprehension of divine power, and one could even use it to awaken the origin divine power factor. I control 7 types of divine-grade divine power. Which one should I cultivate first? I'd better first train in hegemon-level divine power. In the end, Lu Ming decided to cultivate the god's divine power first. The god's divine power was the divine-grade divine power that he had mastered the earliest. He had the deepest understanding of it and it would definitely be easier to cultivate it. But first he had to find a primordial god that controlled the original divine power and had the same origin as the chief divine power. Let's go. Lu Ming tried to move. With a single thought, his body flew out at an unimaginable speed. Around him, huge gods were fighting fiercely. However, Lu Ming was not affected at all. He was pierced through. That is the origin Shin power of the Sun Shin power. Lu Ming saw a primordial divine power radiating with light all over its body. It was more resplendent than a star. When it went crazy, it grabbed a star as a weapon and threw it at its enemy. It was extremely powerful. This primordial godly spirit controlled origin Shin power, which was similar to the Sun Shin power. Lu Ming happened to be in control of the Sun Shin power. Let's first find the origin divine power of a ruler's divine power. Lu Ming suppressed his excitement and continued to search.